Welcome to my channel, where mysteries unfold, strange tales come to life, and the unexplained takes center stage. Here, we dive deep into eerie legends, unsolved cases, and supernatural phenomena that defy logic. Are you ready to step into the unknown? Brace yourself, keep an open mind, and join us as we uncover the world's greatest mysteries. Please listen to the story, A Journey of Faith and Fear. I met my wife in 2004. We were married in December 2005. When me and my wife first got married, she was pursuing a career in the medical field. My mom also works in the healthcare industry at an assisted living facility in the town that we live in. She had told my wife, she said, "Hey, there is a lady that needs 24-hour care, but her family doesn't want to put her in a nursing home. They have went out and purchased her a house. They've added on a handicap accessible area, and the rest of the house would be yours. The only room that you would share would be the kitchen. You would need to cook for. Everything's paid for utilities. They're looking for people to move in and take care of her. Would you guys be interested in doing that?" We thought about it. We're like, maybe that's a good thing. We could save a little money. And we agreed. We ended up moving out of our apartment. In January of 2007, moved in with this lady. This is where things started to change for us. This lady had one family member that was just really didn't jive with me. This woman was very dark, depressing, if you will. She's never seemed to have anything good to say. Never had a smile on her face. She was never really a happy person. It was really sad, but we dealt with her. And the thing that this elderly lady that we took care of, she was legally blind. She was in a hover-round, basically. That's how she was able to get around. She'd get out of her chair and get to a mobility chair, go to the bathroom. We would just be nearby in case she needed this. She couldn't really watch TV. She would listen to it. She really liked A&E. She would watch the whole entire block of programming every night. There was a show that started. It's called Paranormal State. It was about these college students. They would go to these houses where they felt like there was supernatural activities happening there. That's really, I think, who started experimenting. Things start coming. One night, me and my wife had left Wednesday night Bible class. We come home. We were in our part of the house, which was 3-bedroom to the living room. A 1 full bathroom with a double vanity, and then a half bath that had a stand-up shower toilet. So we're in the master bathroom, standing in front of the vanity, brushing my teeth, getting ready for bed. My wife said it got really cold. All of a sudden I said, "Yeah, I did. I don't like it. There's something in this house. Let's go to the living room. Let's pray." I turn on the living room light. Me and my wife both got down in the couch, on our knees, and start praying. We're rebuking the devil. I just remember stopping. I was listening to my wife. She was crying, face buried in the pillow. All of a sudden, I heard the loudest, blood-curdling scream I've ever heard in my life. I still hear it in my mind. Then there was a peace that I can't even describe that entered that room. I told my wife, I said, "Babe, it's gone." We went to bed, both slept like babies. That next Friday we had service. We had church. I stood up and I testified about it. What I didn't know was that night, this thing had left our house and went across the street. We had went to church with folks across the street. This man's name is Matt. Matt had heard my testimony Friday at church. He actually came over to my house. He told me that morning, He said I woke up out of a dead sleep. I thought somebody broke into my house. I went straight through the house, checked on the kids, they were fine. And he said something began to speak to me. After that had happened, we went on just business as usual. We just lived our life. We've went several years without anything happening, until I was at a funeral. A good, close family friend of mine lost his sister in a head-on collision. She died instantly. We were at the funeral home. There were 3 people that showed up, and they were witches. They looked at me almost like telepathically. Something spoke and said, "There's 3 of us." It made the hair stand up on the back of my neck, and I just looked dead at these people. And I was just like, "In Jesus' name." They never said anything to me. It was just a very wild experience. And I've never had anything like that happen since. We ended up moving it, just didn't end up working out. Taking care of that lady, we didn't have really any freedoms. We were young, and we ended up moving it into my grandma's house in Ikebenon. Everything was good. We didn't have any issues. Me and my wife were trying for children, and we'd end up spending thousands and thousands of dollars of fertility drug, fertilization, and all that stuff. And we were just like, okay, whatever, we'll just adopt. This man is an older gentleman out of Atlanta. Georgia Preach, just a really amazing message. All about faith and healing. He was closing and said, "If you believe that God's able to touch, and can you just come up here and let me pray for you right now?" My wife, without hesitation, went up there. Pray for her. She heard a voice give her a date. So she went to her phone, puts the date in, and it was exactly 9 months. On the very day that it's saved in her phone, she got a phone call from her friend that she worked with. She called me. She said, "If you and your husband looking to adopt, my mother's friend has custody of her granddaughter." My wife hangs up the phone, and she just instantly starts crying. She goes, "You ain't gonna believe this." And then she tells me that. She unloads that on me. I'm like, unbelievable. A week later, they called us and said, she has a half-sister that was just born. And we went from an emptiness to a fullness, like literally overnight. This is where it seemed like. The activity picks back up again with us. When they came to be with us, they came out of a very horrible condition, a very horrible situation. In this family, there was a half-brother and half-sister that were in the occult practice. Witchcraft, and their dad had committed suicide. They also had 2 cousins in the same family. Father-son commit suicide. The dad committed suicide too. 3 years later, son committed suicide. This whole family line was completely played. It was just a very nasty, bad situation that these girls were brought out of. I started having these nightmares. I would be asleep and feel this dreadful, overwhelming fear come into the room. It's always the dark shadow, figure of a man that walks to my side of the bed. It reaches for my throat. It tries to choke me. I am fighting with everything I got, just to say the name of Jesus. It takes every ounce of strength. Once I get the name out, then the hands receive. And I just keep saying it until I wake up. And I'll wake up in a full flesh fight mode. It started after we adopted our girls. And then I started traveling all over the United States, in Ikebenon Alta. I was working my first job out of town in Bradenton, Pennsylvania. I was staying at the Holiday Inn Express, right there on the river. I was sharing a room with a guy that worked night shift. But he wasn't there. I was turning in for the night. I got that overwhelming feeling of dread and terror come over me again. I watched this black figure of a man come through the door and get real close and start to grab my neck, start to squeeze. Again, the fight is on to get the name of Jesus out of my mouth. I have probably had one of these episodes from probably 2014 too. I think the last one I had was probably a few weeks ago. Pretty brutal. Me and my wife and my daughters were coming home. Who just turned down our road. There's a greenhouse on this country road, and there's a street light. On the opposite side of the greenhouse, there's a home. We had just turned at the light and started down our road when I seen this 10 or 11-year-old girl on a Razor scooter widening right across the road. My daughters were like, "Dad, what is that?" The face is a pale. Dick looked like death. A dead face, pale, sunken, hollow eyes. It was wearing a jacket with fur around the face, staring right at us, and went right across the road and vanished into thin air. I stopped right in the middle of the street. The light actually dimmed as this thing crossed the road. I backed up, turned my brights on, shined them, because I was like, where did that kid go? There was nobody around. My wife said, just go to the house. It just makes you think, where do these things go? If you don't have the power to get rid of them, they just what? Do they just take up shop at your house? Do they just mess with you? Move. Moving on around August of 2021, my wife came to me and she said, "Hey, you ain't gonna believe this." I said what she said, "I'm pregnant." We've been married, this is year 19 for us. I was excited and I couldn't believe it. I grew this house. I'm like, we gotta pass. We gotta buy a house. We ended up finding perfect house. Right there in the middle between church and work. It's perfect. She had moved in April 2022. Ate her first meal April 4th, 2022. Down the road from us, the trailer park. And there's a lot of bad activity that happens. This trailer park, a lot of drug use. A lot of meth cops are coming and going. My middle daughter, being the social butterfly that she is, she made friends with a girl that lived in the same apartment. She said I want her to stay the night. I like to take her to Sunday school. I said I work, that's fine with me. I don't care. This little girl comes over and we feed her a good meal. We're getting ready for bed. On a matter of fact, I'm in bed. These girls come running down the hallway, down to my room, busting my door like, yeah. He saw something. He saw this giant shadow walking down the hallway towards us. I said, this is what we're gonna do. I said, we're gonna go living room. We're gonna pray, we're gonna get rid of this thing. This little girl's looking at me. She said, I've seen this before. It's at my house. It changes colors. I looked at her. I said, honey. I said, I want to tell you something. I said, you didn't do anything wrong. You're gonna pray about it. I'm gonna help you. She's crying. He started praying. I felt that heaviness lift. I told him, I said, we're good. Y'all go to sleep. We'll see you in the morning. With the rampant drug use in this adjacent neighborhood, I believe that there's residual spirits that are out. I was sitting in my living room one night, minding my own business. But out of the corner of my eye, I seen something manifest in my kitchen. It was just a brief second. I was looking right into my kitchen. It went floating by and and it was another dead face that had just this ugly face. No eyes, just this ugly, dead-looking corpse on the face. And I've seen that twice. It's probably the start of this year. I was going to bed, and I got a big guard dog. He always lays next to my bed. He just starts growling, and I hear this. Right in my doorway in my closet. Am I really hearing this? I thought about David, and when David slew Goliath in the Bible, and I was like, you know what? I'm not going to fear whatever this is, because I got something greater. I just fell asleep, I just went to bed, and that was that. But I will tell you, there are good times that I've got up in the middle of the night, thinking my Lord and my will. One of my dogs have an accident in the house. I'll smell putrid, like absolute putrid smells, like what in the world? Like just pure death. I'll go look around, there wouldn't be nothing there. And I'm like, okay, I know what this is. Every time I'm just getting out of a prayer. That's why. I guess really why I wanted to share my story. Because I've experienced this in High Amsterdam. And this is what I've experienced. Me, personally, I just believe it comes with the territory. It comes with what I'm doing. You can share your story with us by going to truescarystory.com and filling out the form. We're building a great community here, so thank you so much for your messages and reviews. You can support us and get the episodes without ads by trying out Scary, plus links to everything are in the description of this episode. Thank you very much for listening. Keep it scary, everyone. See you soon. Please listen to the story, Don't Look Out Toward the Fields, a Paranormal. I am originally from the Rio Grande Valley in Texas. It's right on the Texas-Mexico border. The experience that I had that really got me into the paranormal was an evening at an aunt and uncle's house. It's built on top of these cinder blocks. It's a lifted wooden house. I grew up in a house like that too. We would always joke when it's cold outside. It's colder inside when it's hot outside. It's hotter inside. You can hear everything that's happening, just the way that those houses were built. Everything echoed. Growing up, we had barbecues all the time. There was always a carne asada happening. It seemed to rotate whose family was going to stay. When the barbecue ended, one evening, that was my family. It was my parents and myself. The barbecues ended. Everybody's gone except for my aunt and my uncle, my parents and myself. I was very young, maybe 6th grade or junior high. We were sitting in their kitchen. To paint that for you, if you can imagine it, the back of their house. There was a door to the backyard. Above the sink, there was a window where you could see what we call Monty. You could say it was like brush. Just trees and bushes and stuff. That's how the whole Rio Grande Valley is. It's a very agricultural area in the state. Imagine this house, sitting in the middle of all this empty land, with just fields and Montes surrounding it. It was at night. My aunt starts telling my parents how she's worried. Because her sons are out, she's worried for their safety. Just general mother things. My parents try to calm her down, and they try to tell her you've raised good kids. Your sons have good heads on their shoulders. They have cell phones now. Not to age myself. People were just starting to get their own cell phones. My mom said they'll be fine. They're not going to drink and drive. And if they need help, they have our numbers. We can go pick them up or something. Mythia says I'm not worried about what they're doing. Out there, I know that they're fine. I know they're responsible. I'm worried about what happens when they try to come home. We're all very confused by this. 'Cause what does that mean? My parents ask her, "What's going on when they're trying to get home?" Maethia starts telling us the last couple times that her boys have gone out. When they get home, they will either tell their parents, or their parents would be awake. They would all experience it together. Just strange things would happen. They would hear voices or noises. When Matilda, she would stay up washing dishes late, looking out that back window into the monte. She could see shadows at night. When they'd go to check, there would be nobody there. Nobody would have reason to be out there. Again, it's in the middle of all this field land and stuff. There's no roads that go into that neighborhood. Just weird things started happening at night. As they're telling us this, we're sitting in their kitchen. It's a long table. My parents are on one side. My aunt and my uncle are on the other side. I'm at the head of the table. Opposite of me is their back door. She's telling us this, and in the middle of her, explaining these strange occurrences, that back door that I have a direct line of sight to starts shaking violently. The handle is metal, and it's jiggling like someone's trying to open it, and the door is being pulled back and forth in this wooden house. You could feel the whole room shaking. Everybody froze and was staring at the door. There is this 3-liter of soda next to me on the table, and I slowly pushed it in front of my face to hide myself from this door. I was scared. I didn't know what to do. I had never really seen anything like that before. I don't know why I thought this would protect me. We're all frozen for a minute. And my uncle? He gets up. He's grumbling something under his breath. He goes to the door and he rips it open. There's nothing there. We're all even more silent. If that could happen. I'm petrified at this point. He says it was a dog. It was probably a dog just messing with the door. I saw when he opened the door. I couldn't look away even though I wanted to. And there was nothing there. I saw that there was nothing there. He closes the door and he sits back down. My aunt, she starts getting scared again. She says, "You see, that's what I'm talking about. I feel like there's something on this land. There's something out there. And I'm worried that something's going to happen to the boys when they try to get home later." Again, as she's trying to explain this to us, the door starts shaking again, even harder this time. This entire time I couldn't move. I was frozen. I wanted to run to a different part of the house, but I was just scared to move again. This door is shaking violently back and forth. The handle, you can hear the metal jingling. My uncle gets up again, opens the door. This time, we see a dog. But the dog is running up to the door. It wasn't already there. He said, "It's the dog." It's the dog. Throws the dog a scrap of leftover meat. Closes the door, but I'm thinking no. I can see this all happening. The dog was running up to the door. They closes the door, sits down, and my uncle chimes in, and he's just trying to brush it off. Like it's just, there's stray dogs out here in the Monte. There's animals and stuff. It's probably coyotes or just trying to explain it away. He's a big skeptic. Okay, sure, animals. Even though we're not buying it. As he's talking about that, we hear the dog at the door whimper. Like when a dog gets hit, it starts to cry. We hear the cry getting fainter and fainter. The dog is running away. We can hear it running away again. The door starts to shake. My uncle was right there ready for it. He was waiting for it. He knew it was going to happen again. So he gets up, throws the door open again. There's nothing. Nothing. By that third time, we had enough. The first time was enough for me, but I was at their mercy there. My parents, they drove us. I had to wait for them. By that third time, my parents were like, okay, we're gonna go. We'll pray for your kids. I don't know if they came up with the game plan or what the conversation was, but I was in escape mode. I was ready to get out of there. But also, that meant that I had to walk outside to the car, which I didn't want to do, because I don't know what's out there. Something's out there terrorizing us. And I think I just remember running to my parents' van and just jumping in and ready to go, and I've never been back to that house since that happened. That is definitely one of the biggest contributions to my interest in the paranormal. I think it's one of the biggest reasons why. I started my own podcast about the paranormal. On my show, it's called Sususto, and I tell scary stories from the folklore of Latin, American, and Hispanic cultures. Because aside from that one experience, I heard so many stories about lechuzas and L.A. Llorona, chupacabras El Cucuy, and so you can imagine, when this was happening that night, all these kind of legends, these monsters, they're running through my head. And I'm just going through this Rolodex of, okay, which one is it? Which one is it? Which one's coming after us right now? That moment in my life was a big, I think, contributing factor to starting Sous Chef. You know what, I really haven't told this story too much. On my own show, I think I've mentioned it a couple times, but I haven't gone into such great detail retelling it. Now I'm thinking about, I don't think I've ever had a real conversation with my parents about it. It was one of those things where it happened, and we just didn't really talk about it. I don't think any of us wanted to remember it. That's why I'm like this now. Share a story with our community by going to True. Scary story. Calm and tapping on the I have a story button. And we'll get in touch ad. Free versions of the show are available on Scary Plus. Calm, and you can get in touch with me over on Instagram as Edwin Cove. That's EDWINCOV. Thank you very much for listening. Keep it scary, everyone. See you soon. Everyone, see you. Please listen to the story Footprints and Walking in the Dark. I grew up in the Philippines. I moved to the U.S. 13 years ago. I was around 23 when I migrated. I spent my childhood and early adulthood back home. In the Philippines, a lot of people believe in ghosts, mythical creatures, spirits. My very first memory was when I was 7 years old, when I used to live in a town called Muntinlupa City, which is in the Metro Manila area. I remember our house being huge, but as a child, everything is bigger than us. I remember having a big living room that led to the kitchen and stairs that went up to the second floor with 2 big bedrooms. My parents would sleep on their bed, and me and my 2 younger brothers, and Grandma would sleep on the floor in the same bedroom. And this is pretty much a cultural thing, where extended families could still be living with you. Most households are like this anyways. The second bedroom, we were renting it to 2 other girls, and one time one of the renters went on vacation, and the renter asked me if I could sleep in their bedroom. I got so excited because I get to sleep on a bed by myself. That night I got ready for bed, and I remember I fell asleep right away. Eventually, for some reason, I woke up in the middle of the night. I know it was late because I could tell that my parents' bedroom lights were off. However, I can hear people downstairs. There was some party of some sort. I can hear someone going up and down the stairs. I can hear people talking. I can even hear music playing. I wanted to shout and call my mom, but every time I would open my mouth, there was nothing coming out. I can't even whisper. There was a coat hanger close to the door. A big hat and hoodies were hanging on the coat rack. I could see a set of ice. They don't look like normal eyes, though, as they are just red, big, bright red eyes. I was so scared. I decided to cover myself with a blanket and prayed until I fell asleep. I told my mother what happened the next day, and she believed me. She said there was a thick that night. Ethic is a bird-like creatures of death that prowl the night in search for food. So that's one of Filipino mythical creatures that we believe in. Eventually, me and my family moved out of the house and moved to another city. My parents received a piece of land from their godparents and built a small house. Next to our house is my grandparents' house, and they just started building their own house there as well. I have so many stories from this house, from the moment we moved in, as they were building my grandparents' house, and up until everything was done. Me and my family were experiencing a lot of unexplainable things. The most unforgettable one was during time, when they were still building my grandparents' house. I was probably a teenager by this time, maybe around 13 or 14. I remember this was in the middle of the day. We just got done eating lunch. One of the construction workers started looking at our shoes and flip-flops right outside the door of our house. My mother was like, "What are you doing? What are you looking for?" The guy was not happy. He said that he just laid fresh cement on the stairs, and someone used the stairs and left footprints on the wet cement. My mom was not happy with that accusation, so me, my mom, and my other grandma, we went to go and check it out. When we got to my grandparents' house, we all saw little footprints on the wet cement, on the stairs. Whoever it was, whatever it was, left footprints on at least 3 to 4 steps from the second floor, where the bedrooms are down. It looked like it was coming down from the second floor, and it just gave us goosebumps. Goosebumps will crawl from the back of my neck. I think the footprints, they look like they're about the size of a year, or 2-year-old infant actual baby. We all don't know how to react. I remember my other grandma and my mom seeing their hair standing on their arms, and the construction worker was just laughing because, he saw the sizes of our shoes and our flip-flops. They're not. They're too big for that size of the footprints. Whatever is on the wet cement, it's just too big. Can't be ours. And plus, we know we would get in trouble, so we would not do anything like that. Maybe after a year or 2, my grandparents' house was constructed. I can't remember the reason, but I spent the night at my grandma's and slept in one of my aunt's bedrooms. I remember she has a queen-size bed. My aunt's queen-size bed was next to the wall, and she slept on the side, next to the wall, while I slept on the side that was closer to the door. In the middle of that night, I felt something was slowly moving my arm. It was holding me from my wrist, and I remember feeling the thumb and the middle finger on my wrist. It slowly lifted up my arm, and I felt it, so I turned around to my other side, where my aunt was lying down, and she was just asleep, so there was no way it was her that grabbed me. I didn't think much of it. I told my mother the next day, but I don't think she believed me at the time, saying that it was just probably a dream. When my aunt, who was living in Japan, came home for a visit, I spent the night in her bedroom, and when we woke up the next morning, there were baby handprints and lip marks on the mirror. And we know it's their baby's prints. Handprints and lip marks because they're so tiny. Like literally baby handprint. Same as the size, like as tiny as those footprints that we saw on the cement. A little backstory. Years prior to completing the construction of the house, my aunt, who was living in Japan, she had a miscarriage. That was supposedly her first child, and we believe it might be that baby. Maybe trying to communicate, possibly looking for love, being playful and saying, "Hey, I'm still around." When she had a miscarriage, they had to put the baby in a box for maybe a week or two and left it at their house as they were trying to prepare for the funeral. For the baby, I feel like that was a mistake. Because why would you just leave the baby by itself without, I don't know, I just thought that was wrong. I felt like the baby should have been put to rest as early as possible. But it's nobody's fault, it's just different. That Filipinos just handle death differently. In the Philippines, it typically takes weeks to put our dead people to rest. This upcoming story deals with another visitor at night. The story is called Walking in the Dark, and it is coming up right after this stay with us. Here it is. This is Olivia's true scary story. The house that I grew up in always consisted of myself, my mom, my aunt, and my grandmother. There wasn't really anything scary about this house. We would get the occasional movement of a glass. Sometimes you would hear things, but you never thought anything of it. You just push it off as, oh, it's nothing, not really thinking about it. Was until when I got into middle school, is when I started believing more and more that there's something other than us in this world. It was morning, early morning. I was getting ready to go to school. My mom was getting ready to go to work. So was my aunt. My grandmother was still sleeping. Nice little October day. As I was getting ready, my mom had got me all situated and everything. And she was like, "I'm gonna go finish getting ready." She was in the other bathroom, so I was like, okay. My aunt was in her room, getting ready. Grandma was still asleep. I thought that I had heard something before, but like rustling in the living room. But I thought maybe it's just my mom. She forgot something. Or I'm hearing it come from the bathroom, 'cause I knew she was in there. And so was my hand in her room. So then all of a sudden I heard like this rustling, like pants, like jeans, and how they make those noises of that rustling sound of movement in the living room. It started right in the middle of the living room. In our living room, once you walked in the front door, it was set up as you walked in. The living room is right there as you walked in. Then you walk a little bit more too. On your right side, you come in and there's 2 rooms and a bathroom. Go the other direction on your left. You have the living room, and that was carpeted. And then, after you go past the living room, there was the linoleum floor to get into the kitchen. And then after that was the last bedroom and bathroom. So it started out in the middle of the living room. This pant sounds like rustling movement. And I even called out, and I told cause I thought it was my mom. And I was like, "You're still there, huh?" I heard nothing. The footsteps and the rustling came to the very edge of where the carbon linoleum meet. So I didn't move, 'cause I thought maybe I'll get a response. And I didn't get any kind of response whatsoever. And at this point, I'm like scared beyond compare. Like I didn't even move, 'cause I didn't move. I didn't look, 'cause I didn't want to see what I might see. Finally, I was like, okay. I'm like, I gotta go and get up, and I gotta look, and I gotta see what's going on. Who is in the living room that's playing with me? I go towards the little entryway where the arch is, into the kitchen. I look, there's nothing. There's no one. There's nothing. My mom is still in the bathroom. My aunt is still getting ready in her room. I go sit down because I'm like, this is beyond freaky. I'm like, how? So then my mom comes and she's like, what's wrong? So I started telling her what I heard and she's like, what? I go, yeah. I said wrestling. I even animated the noise. I said because this is what I'm hearing. I said, but then, when I went to go look, I said, there was nothing, there's nobody. So she equally got freaked out as much as I did. My room on the doorway had those beads that everybody had at one point, because everybody thought that they were cool. I had those and I had them on my doorway, and every time you moved or you pulled them aside, they would make that nice little sound of like beads rustling. So anytime they moved them, they would make noise at that time. I also had an inflatable chair that no matter what, that thing always deflated. No matter what I did, it always deflated. It was just one of those chairs. Every night, I would always put like my bedding on top of that chair, that inflatable chair, because I had nowhere else to put it. But I always made sure that I always moved it away from the wall, so that way it wouldn't like squink or get rubbed or anything against the wall and freak anybody out. So this one particular night, we had all gotten ready for bed and everything. My mom was the last to get ready for bed. I could see her, I could hear her and everything. And then finally she was like, night. We're all like night. Maybe 10-15 minutes later, I hear that rustling sound again, like somebody is walking. In our hall leading into our bedrooms was all carpet. You could hear it even more. And I was like, maybe it's my mom. I'm like, maybe she forgot something, or maybe she, instead of going all the way back to the other side of the house, where her bedroom was, she just needed to come back and grab water, or something. But then I heard the beads on my doorway, like they kind of parted, and as they parted, you can hear that beating, moving, and clinking together. It was very light, but I could still hear it. I opened one eye, because I was like, really? I'm like, maybe she forgot something. I looked, and I opened my eye, and I could see 4 of the strings of beads from my doorway, swaying back and forth. I got freaked out at this point. I'm like, maybe she touched it on her way. But mind you, that was like maybe 10-15 minutes before. I'm like, I'm not gonna think about it. It's late. I'm just gonna go to sleep. Again, I hear rustling, like actual somebody's walking. It starts from my doorway, moves past my TV to that inflammable chair that I have. I hear somebody, as if somebody sat down in this chair. As you sat down in this chair, sometimes if you were against the wall and you, even though you were away from the wall, the way that you sat down, you would still somehow back up. So you would hear that squeaking sound of the chair, rubbing up against the wall. I'm at this point so scared out of my mind. I don't look. I don't call out. I don't do anything. I cover my head, scared as all can be, and I just leave it. So I think I must have fallen asleep. Next morning, I wake up. It's the week. It's a Saturday morning. I wake up, and as soon as I wake up, I instantly remember what I heard the night before. I'm like, I gotta check out this chair. Sure enough, It is like somebody had sat in the chair, because it was pushed up against the wall, which I had known that. I hadn't pushed it against the wall the night before, and like no way could my mom have come back, touched those beads, and then left without me hearing her or seeing her. I told my mom and my aunt the next morning. They were freaked out. I was freaked out, or like, yep, nope, we're not. And we're like, maybe because my grandfather had passed away years ago when I was the age of 2. And they have a theory, I have this theory, that maybe it was my grandfather checking on me, making sure that I was okay. Wasn't until a couple years after that, after I graduated, after I got finished with middle school, and then graduated from high school. We ended up moving to a new house, newly built, so I knew that it didn't have anything. And all of a sudden, we were all sitting there one day around the table. In our dining room table, my mom, my aunt, me, my grandmother. The doorbell rings. We look, there's nobody. But it wasn't like the hard doorbell ring as I feel like sit really super hard. Makes that really loud doorbell, he knows. One of us went to go look. There is nobody there. Again. I think that it was my grandfather checking on us again, just saying, hey, I'm here. Thank you very much for listening. See you soon. See you soon. See you. Please listen to the story. There's something in the closet. I grew up in a small town called Lake Los Angeles. It's 30 minutes away from Lancaster, an hour away from Los Angeles. This house was bought by my dad. He built it up. Whatever was in that house didn't come from the land. It came from something I didn't know. The first encounters, I would be outside playing or be alone. I would hear my mom call me. I would run to her. This happened countless times. My mom would be like, no, I didn't call you. What are you talking about? I do recall the feeling of being watched, being afraid to be alone. I was really scared of being alone, even as a toddler, as a baby. I was scared of being alone in that house. I was in 3rd grade. I was sitting down next to my bed folding my clothes. My closet was wide open. I felt something in my head was like, oh, look at the closet. As I turned around, my hangers start moving, like somebody is looking for clothes. I stood frozen. When I could react, I ran out of my room and went to go tell my mom. My mom was like, oh no, you're probably just imagining things. It was probably just the AC. It was probably just the wind. But there was nothing on no fans. Nothing that could explain that. After that, I can't remember much. Just being really scared of being alone. I was really terrified of my closet. I would close my closet at night, wake up, and the part of the closet was open. It was a sliding door closet. It was open, like if somebody could peek through. I would gaslight myself. Oh, maybe I didn't close it right. But now thinking back on it, I would close my closet right, because I was very scared. I was in 4th grade when I actually started seeing whatever was in the house. My dad had an office room. Our hallway was really long. It just had doors. I was sitting there in my room watching TV. My dad was in his office earlier. I never saw him leave. But all of a sudden, I did see him walk by. I was going to ask my dad, hey, can I play pinball on the computer? Or go on Club Penguin? I walked into the office. It was just pitch black. When I had just seen whatever that figure was walk into that room, that's when I was like, there's something wrong in this house. I saw that figure go into the room. Since the hallway was dark, the room was dark. I didn't make note of it. I didn't think, but as I walked up to the door was shut when I opened it. The room was completely pitch black. There was nobody in there. I ran to the garage, told my dad. My dad is a very non-believer. And he was like, no, it's just in your head. You're watching movies, I told my mom. I feel like my mom always knew what was going on in that house. She would always try to keep it calm by telling me it was just my imagination. I continued to see shadows out of the corners of my eyes or the closet. I would hear noises in the closet, rustling, things like that. We left to Mexico for vacation, and we came back. I overheard this conversation. My uncle was telling my mom that in my room in the closet he heard voices. He heard rustling. He felt something, a very negative presence watching him. My mom was like, oh, it's just our sister, because her sister had passed away. My uncle was like, no, that is not a presence of our family. That is the presence of something bad. My mom chose to blow it off. Later on, I think I was in 6th grade. I don't remember a lot of stuff. Maybe I blocked it out because I was so scared. I used to love watching a haunting. I was sitting there watching with my dog. I started hearing my dog. She was growling at the hallway. I was like, what's wrong? She stopped. I continued to watch TV. Then she starts barking like crazy. I looked up and I saw this tall, dark figure walk from that office room to my parents' room. My dog was going crazy, barking, barking, barking. I grabbed her and I went outside and I was like, hey, this is what I saw. They always wanted to tell me that's not what you saw, that it was just in my head or in my imagination. I know it was it. After that, things started to pick up a lot. I started feeling things touch me and whisper right next to me. There was this one instance. My sister had come over. She was healing the relationship with our family. I was babysitting her son. He was toddler age 2 or 3. She left him in his playpen. They had all left to Walmart. I was left alone. I was in my bedroom cleaning, getting ready for school the next day. 'Cause it's Sunday, I felt like when somebody walks behind you. But somebody small. I thought it was my nephew. I was like, oh. He climbed out of his playpen's gonna go play. Next to my closet where I have all the toys, I start hearing rustling where my backpack was. Where all the toys were, I was like, hey, baby, stop doing that. It just continued. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw his figure, a small little figure there. I was like, hey, you need to stop. Don't rip my stuff. I walk from my bed to where the closet is. There was nothing. I immediately ran out and went to go see where he was. He was sleeping in his playpen. I picked him up and ran outside and called my sister. Hey, you need to get home right now. I don't remember being this hysterical, but my sister said I was crying, screaming, telling her to come home. She came home as fast as she could and calmed me down. She didn't gaslight me. She knew what was going on in the house. She knew what was happening. Time goes by, we're moving out of this house. It was during recession, we were going to Mexico. I was packing my stuff. The same way my closet was open in the 3rd grade. The same, everything I was doing, the same. I looked up again. My hangers were just moving. I was so mad at the circumstances of moving to a new country. I told that you need to stop. You need to leave me alone. I was so mad it just stopped. Those moving hangers just stopped. Completely stopped. It was shaking, and it stopped. Right before moving out, my mom was sitting down on the couch. We were watching novellas. I got upset at her. I left to my room and locked the door. I was sitting there writing in my diary. All of a sudden, I just feel my room shake like an earthquake. We used to have this religious figure. It was L.A. Virgin Maria. She's holding baby Jesus. And there started rocking back and forth as soon as everything stops. I get up, run to my mom, and I'm like, "Hey, Mom, there was an earthquake. There was an earthquake." My mom just looks at me. She's like, "What are you talking about? Are you okay? What's going on?" I explained to her. She just was like, "Okay, we'll pray together." That's when my mom started really realizing that I wasn't lying. She knew the whole time. Fast forward to us being adults, living in a new house. We were all sitting down. I started telling my mom, "Remember when you would gaslight me so much?" About this house, my sister starts laughing. They start laughing. They're like, "We all experienced stuff in that house. They just wanted to protect me. Have me not be afraid." My sisters, they decided to play summoning games, mirror games, Ouija board in that room. The closet used to have mirror doors. After the seminary games, she dreamt about a demon, a presence trying to suck her into the mirror. She woke up with scratches on her cheeks. I think when my sisters played those summoning games, those mirror games, that Ouija board, they let something out. It wasn't good. I don't know if it was a demon, but it liked to mess with me. I liked to cause fear to make itself known. It was really scary. My mom, she tells me that in that room, she was never able to sleep. She felt like something was there. A negative, nasty presence watching her. My sister, when she would come over, she wouldn't sleep in there either. Everybody who stayed at that house, that was family. Not family. They always said the same thing. They heard ruffling in the closet or a voice, a really strong, negative energy watching upon them while they sleep. Whatever it was, it's still in that house right now. That house, it's alone. Nobody lives in there. There's abandoned cars there. Somebody owns it, but I don't think anybody stays or resides there anymore. I've never been back to that house. I did go back to my friend's house. He lives next door. We were waiting. I forgot before my friend was like, "Let's play Ouija board, come on. It'll be fun." I said, "Okay." That's fine. We started to play. It's going smoothly. We look up protection. We do it in a safe way, but all of a sudden, the mood changes when my friend asks it the question, "Hey, do you know us?" It says yes. We ask it, "How long have you known us?" It doesn't reply. We asked, "Have you known us since we were kids?" Yes. I've started to feel exactly how I felt in that house. That same presence that I always felt. I don't know what it was, just a negative, dark presence. I told my friend, "We need to stop. We need to stop playing this. Whatever was in that house is channeling through your house. We need to stop." When we stopped, we closed everything, said goodbye, but I still felt very uneasy, like I was being watched, the same way I hadn't felt in a long time. My friend was like, "Oh, you're fine, you're fine." I went home that day. I still felt the same way. Lights would flicker. I don't know if it was a coincidence. I started waking up at odd times. 3 in the morning, 2:30 in the morning. I started feeling scared. My friend was like, "You should go to somebody who does a cleansing." We did a cleansing. She said whatever was in that house before was trying to attach itself to me again. the curandera brujera. I don't know what to refer to her as, told me that. Not to play with those things because in my family, somebody had done brujeria to my dad. Whatever was out to hurt my dad was out to hurt us. I didn't know this my mom. She did confirm that. My grandma and my aunt would do brujeria. They would do things like that. That's what the lady ended up advising me. That's why I feel like I believe a lot in that now. So later on, my mom met the lady that rented the home. She asked my mom, was there anything? Did anybody pass away in this house? My daughters are experiencing things that we can't explain. My mom said, I would just pray and be strong with your faith. In your religion, they can't hurt you. My mom didn't tell her what happened. It is not to scare her. She had just rented out the house. She was a single mom. She was happy. I still experience paranormal things. We moved into a different house. And this one wasn't as scary. It was comforting. We moved into a house and my dad works with word a lot. He was making my mom's friends a box for her ashes. Her ashes were in our house. I remember this night. They had took my door away because I was being a bad kid. I was falling asleep. My dog was barking at the hallway. I pushed him so he would stop. I woke up, he's still doing it. I decided to cover him with the blanket. As I'm falling asleep, I felt something. Like when your mom used to wake you up to go to school. If she would touch your face to wake you up. That's what it felt like somebody was doing to me. I brushed it off. I thought it was my dog. Then I felt it again. I opened my eyes. There was nothing in the room. My dog was just sitting there frozen. I think he was scared. He was silent. I was like looking everywhere. There was nothing in the room. We say it's that person, my mom's friend, because I used to call her Grandma. I feel like in a way I was her coming to say bye. She never got to say bye to me. But that's a different experience. Not as scary as the ones in that house, where I felt things touching me or watching me. It's really scary to think there's things out there that like to cause fear, that want to hurt you, especially when you're a child. Anyway, thank you very much for listening. Keep it scary, everyone. See you soon. See you soon. Please listen to the story, Demon in the Barn, while exploring an abandoned farmhouse in rural California. Two friends came face to face with something dark, an encounter so chilling that it still haunts them. Decades later, my name is Edwin, and here is Dory's true scary story. I grew up on my grandparents' and great-grandparents' property in the Central Valley of California. In the 1800s, my family settled there. I'm not sure how they got the land. I think they got it from the Native American Indian tribe. That was in the area. I think it was the Miwoks. My great-grandparents built a big, huge custom home on the property. Had peach orchards, then walnut orchards, almond orchards. Then my grandparents built a big ranch house on that property as well. When I was a teenager, we moved onto the property, onto a separate house next to my grandparents' house. So we spent a lot of time outside. I had horses and whatnot. Our property was 40 acres, and we were up on a bluff. The bluff overlooked the top of walnut orchards. So we would go down, especially in the summertime. We'd either ride the horses or walk, and we'd take this one road that went straight down, of almost a mile, and our property ended at the river, to a day where this story comes into play. This summer, my friend and I, we were going to walk down there just killing time. We usually went to the east. This time I said, let's go to the west, because last week, When I was with another friend riding our horses, I rode past this old house that was sitting back off the river, off the road. You could tell from the road far away it's abandoned. I said, let's go check it out, see if there's anything cool there. So we start walking down there. It's a small little white wooden, one-bedroom little square house. Immediately behind it is a very large wooden barn. It was clear that this house was probably built like in the 20s turn of the century. It's an old dilapidated house. It's in the middle of nowhere. There's just, for as far as you can see in any direction, it's just orchards. So as we were approaching it, we were being kind of quiet because we didn't know if there were. Like any other random people out there, we were just two girls. So we wanted to be careful that we weren't going to bump into some scary dudes down there. So we kind of did a big circle around the barn in this house to make sure nobody was there. And we were quiet as we were doing it. This barn is massive, huge barn, the size of a 2-story building. But there was no second story in it. It was just really high rafters. The doors to the barn were slid open. There was probably maybe a 5 or 6 feet space between the back wall of where the house was and the back wall of the barn. And the barn was totally intact. There was nothing wrong with it. That thing was solid. The house, on the other hand, half of the walls, one half of the house. There were no walls left. Trees had crashed into it. Branches, the leaves were everywhere. The front part of it was intact. But the back wall of the house and the back, right side of the house, the walls were gone. But you can still see kind of the footing. 3/4 of the wall will still stand. We go around to the back of this barn as we were making our loop around to make sure no one is there. There's an old tractor, completely covered by the weeds and dry grass, 20 feet, 30 feet away from the barn behind us. As we're facing these barn doors, we're looking inside of it. You could tell it's not used anymore. There's cobwebs from ceiling to floor, dust motes floating through the air. It was late in the afternoon, sun shining through. Everything is covered in this real fine layer of dust. It's clear no one uses this barn. On the right-hand side of the barn, there was like a workbench that just had odds and ends of stuff that people just never used anymore. Old tools and cans and bottles, suitcases. Not a whole lot of stuff, but it was. There was nothing really of any value over there. On the left-hand side of the barn was big railroad ties. Those heavy wooden railroad ties. Probably 20 or 30 of them. But it probably took up. Like 15 feet long by maybe 4 feet high. They were just stacked, not very neatly. You could tell they'd been there for years and years. And years, cobwebs all over them, hay all over them, dust, and there were barrel hoops thrown on top of them, and pieces of wire. It used to be maybe a grape vineyard that was in the empty fields that were around us. They also had peach orchards down there, so there was a lot of old orchard equipment, wooden things, and metal rings, and wire. And then, at the back, left corner, all the way up to, actually, the whole back wall of the barn, was hay bales that had fallen apart, and were just piled up there. It was probably 5 feet high, by maybe the width of the house. There must have been tons of bales of hay there, that fallen apart over 10 or 20 years, and it's just laying there covered in dust, covered in cobwebs. So as we walk through, we're kind of breaking through a few cobwebs, and I'm afraid of spiders. So I'm giggling about, I don't want to see any spiders. and we walk around and we're looking. Oh, maybe we'll see some old cool tool, or some old cool bottle or something interesting. Fun old antique. What not to take with us. We walk around in there. We don't see anything of interest. And we walk back out. We go around to the front of the house. On the front porch is a whole bunch of old, abandoned washers and dryers, and from probably the 50s. As we get into the main part of this little square house, we walked into where there used to be a wall, but there was no more wall there. It was only about 2 feet high, like the foundation. And the bottom part of the wall was there. My friend goes in, and as we walk into the house, if we were standing in the dead center of this perfect square, we were both looking at the back wall of this barn, because there's no wall there to the house. The wall of that house was gone. To the left is a kitchen. You can walk into this little tiny kitchen, and then going on that side also is one little bedroom, and I stayed right where I was, in the center of this house, and I was looking at what was probably the living room, and there was no wall there. There was a pile of just junk on the ground. There's also branches, leaves, everything kind of mixed up in this pile of junk. So my friend goes to the front part. She's looking through the other rooms, and I'm looking into this pile. And as I'm kind of using a stick, and I'm pushing things around to see what's in this pile, I see this staff like a walking stick. It's probably about 4 or 5 feet long, and it is intricately carved. Derek's carving over every inch of it. It's very detailed, ornate carving, and so I'm like poking it with a stick, looking at it, squinting, like, what is that? My friend calls me kind of in a panic, I startle and I go, kind of hustling back to the front part of the house, where she is. A lizard scared her or something. I said, come here, you gotta see what's in this pile. This thing's cool. So, we walk back to where I was standing at this pile, and from where we're standing, we are probably 5 or 6 feet from the back wall of the barn. If you've ever been in an old barn, or like an old wooden fence, you could see kind of through the cracks of the wood, just a little tiny bit. You can see through the cracks of the wood. And so I get to that pile and I'm like, look, there's this stack here. I start poking around in the pile and there's nothing there. It's not there. And she goes, what? What did you see? And I said, there was this stick. And as soon as I started talking about it, there came a sound from inside that barn that was so deafeningly loud. It sounded like somebody had dropped a freight train inside that barn. The ground shook, and it was like whatever was at the back of the barn, where the doors were. It was like a train, or it was louder than a truck. It was whatever it was. It was so loud it was barreling into the barn so fast, so furious you could hear the wood flying. You could hear those barrel rings flying. You could hear the railroad ties flying. You could hear the hay, everything scattering in there. The walls were shaking. The ground was shaking. The air was just reverse. It was so loud, everything just moving in there. And then, whatever it was, hit the back of the wall of that barn, right in front of us, eye level. And you could just hear this guttural growl and breathing on the other side of this wall. And this wasn't a person. This wasn't a car. This was a sound that I can't even describe how incredibly loud this was. We're both frozen, staring at this wall. Through the slats of this wall, we start to kind of inch our way to the right, to kind of walk out away from this house, staring at the wall as we do. You can tell something's on the other side of the wall. You can see it. Dust is kind of coming through the slats of the wood. You could see eyes through those slats, but you can't make out the shape. You could see something on the other side of the wall. It was dark black. The eyes were like a yellowish, then kind of red. As we started facing the wall, slowly inching our way out of the house, not taking our eyes off of this wall. It's still breathing and following us, and you could hear things moving on the other side of that wall. We come around where there's a clearing, and we take off running. We don't look back. We take off running, and we must have ran 3/4 of a mile before one of us just literally collapses on the ground for running so fast. We look at each other. We look around. Make sure nothing's following. Nothing's following us. We look at each other. What the heck just happened? And we start reliving and recounting what we saw. What we heard when we both first started talking. We couldn't believe what had just happened. Part of you wanted to say, this can't be what I thought it was. So as I start explaining what I saw, my friend Jennifer starts finishing my sentences, and I'm doing the same for her. Like, did you see the skin? It looked like it was leather. Did you see his eyes? Yeah. The eyes were red. What was that? We saw. Why was that so loud? What? How was that barn still standing? As we're sitting there, catching our breath, another friend who's like a younger brother to me comes up, because he was going down to the river to go fishing. He's like, "What are you guys doing?" We tell him what happened. He's like, "You guys are full of crap. There's nothing there. You guys are crazy." I'm like, "Dude, I am not kidding you. I have never lied to you. I am not joking." He was like, "All right, then show me." We get up. We start walk back there. I said, "I'll walk back there, but I'm not going in there again. I'm never going back in there." So we walk back over there, take a big wide berth around it, but we go back to where the barn. I said, "I just want to see what." "You go in that barn and you'll see there is. That place is torn to shreds." So we get to the very back, and I'm far away, and I'm looking at the inside side of this barn, and it looks like exactly like it did when we first got there. There's still cobwebs hanging on the ceiling. Everything's in the exact same place. Nothing has been moved. No dust's askew anywhere. It's exactly the same. I tell him, I was like, "Hey, go over there in that house and go look in that pile over there and see if there's a long stick in that." Set him in there like a guinea pig, and he's stupid. So he went in there, and he's like, "There's nothing in here. There's just trash in here. There's old cans and like leaves and trash. And there's nothing in here." "What are you talking about?" I go back, I start doodling. Later that evening, I'm like doodling. Like, I can't picture the images that were on that stick, but I've never seen anything like it. Later, as Jennifer and I talk about that years later, and for days after that, the only thing I can say to describe what we saw was a demon. I have a hard time telling the story to people, because no one's going to believe you. But at that time, I didn't watch scary stories. I was raised in a very religious family. We weren't allowed to talk about that stuff, be involved in that stuff. Like, it was not part of my world, part of just my experience. It wasn't something I was looking for. Wasn't anything I was expecting. But I know what I saw, and it was from that point on that it It really made me wonder what else is out there, because I can't explain what I heard and what I saw. Since that time, as an adult, now, it has made me interested in what else is out there. There's something else that goes on in our world. That's more than just, flesh and bone. There's something else out there. So I've been interested in reading and studying, trying to figure out, but a little bit afraid of finding out exactly what I saw since that day. There are very few things that actually scare me. Almost everything else is tangible. You can fight your way out of it. There was no fighting. You knew you were completely powerless to this. That terrified me to my core. To share your story with us, head on over to True Scary Story. Come and fill out the form. And if you know of somebody who might like this podcast, send it to them. Links are in your app and in the description of this episode. And if you want to support the show and listen without ads, try out Scary Plus. It's free for 2 whole weeks and then 4. $99 a month. You can cancel whenever you want. Thank you very much for listening. Keep it scary. Everyone, see you soon. Please listen to the story Daughter's Dreams. My name is Edmund, and here is Brandon's true scary story. All this started happening a month ago. I live in Ambridge, Pennsylvania, which is about 30 minutes north of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. It's a really industrial kind of city. Everything's old and dated looking. It's mostly coal steel mines and construction places. I moved there last year, went through a divorce, found this apartment that is a really old building. It's really small, and right off of one of the main streets in Ambridge. I took it out of desperation. It was either that or move to Georgia with my family. I wanted to stay in Pennsylvania, my daughter's here, by moving to this apartment. Nothing much really happens for the first year. A month ago, I go to pick my daughter up from daycare. We're about halfway home at this point. My daughter starts telling me about this dream she has, where she's at her mom's house. These bad guys are opening up doors to her bedroom and the door that leads to her mom's room. These bad guys approach her, cut her face and her mom's face. I knew to take this kind of seriously. This dream that she was having. I knew it was more than just a nightmare. I've always been a spiritually sensitive person. My family is sensitive to it. I asked her, what do these bad guys look like? One is a ghost, and another one is a monster. That really disturbed me, just hearing that. My 3.5-year-old daughter is having these visions that she's seeing this happen. I didn't really have a response at the moment. I was awestruck. I changed the subject, but she just talked about it so nonchalantly. It just rolled off her tongue. I knew that this was something that a child her age can't make up on their own. I brought it up to her mom. Her mom kind of seemed to dismiss it. She's more of a skeptic. She thinks that it could just be her imagination, or she's having bad dreams. When I told my mom told me that I should do a cleanse of the apartment. She agreed with me. She agreed that there was no way for her to make that up. She thinks it could have been some kind of malevolent, demonic entity trying to attach itself to her. Those malevolent entities like to attach themselves to people who are in really vulnerable moments, times of despair or trauma, especially to children, because children are naturally more perceptive to the paranormal. A child of divorce seems like a good target for malevolent spirits. So I get her home that night, and it was almost instantaneous. The air in my apartment felt heavy. I live on the 3rd floor, the very top floor of this little apartment building. I didn't feel any tension or negativity until we got into my apartment. It was heavy, it was tense. It felt like any positivity was just being drained. From it, I could feel myself and my daughter. We both seemed to be getting angrier a lot quicker, easily frustrated and agitated. I kept having this looming anxiety the whole time. It kept lingering like that saying, when you're waiting for the other shoe to drop. That's what it felt like. I was in that anxious anticipation. I knew something was there, that something could happen. A few days go by of that feeling. Nothing really happens until one night. I put my daughter in bed, I do my nightly routine. I stay up for a little play, some video games, take a shower, all that stuff to wind down for bed. I get in bed and start drifting off to sleep. Start going into the onset of sleep paralysis, which I never experienced before. I do have sleep apnea. I have a feel for what sleep issues are like. I used to wake up a lot at night, but as soon as I got myself in bed, I was laying on my back while the CPAP started going. I start closing my eyes to drift asleep, and all of a sudden, my limbs start feeling really stiff and heavy, almost to the point of numbness. I wasn't in control of my body for a bit. I thought of paranormal stuff in the association with sleep paralysis. Maybe if I can muster some kind of strength to move my body, I can break the sleep paralysis before it gets too bad. If I start trying to move one of my arms, I'm able to grab the closest thing to me, my phone that grounds me, and do my best to stay calm and not to panic. I'm able to sleep fine after. A few nights pass, and no other sleep paralysis incidents like that happen. But that tense feeling, that anticipation was still all there. I was so anxious. If my daughter woke up in the night crying, I would wake up, but I would just be frozen in fear. Part of me and my gut had this thought, if I go in there, what's going to be in there with her? I'm able to get up, I go in and I check on her. I see nothing. I'm able to calm her, tell her everything's okay, and go back to sleep. I'm still left in that state of fear of whatever's in there in that apartment with us. A week after the first sleep paralysis incident, I put her to bed, did my own thing for a couple hours, went to bed. I wake up and I have no idea what time of night it is. I didn't check my phone. I just naturally woke up from a dream. I look over from the foot of my bed, and on the wall to my right of that door frame is a shadow figure. My room's pitch black. It was blacker than that black. Absence of light completely. It had no discernible facial features. I couldn't see eyes, limbs, or anything. It just looked like a silhouette of someone's shadow being projected. I could tell it was looking at me. I just had that feeling. It was about the height of a child, probably 3.5, no taller than 4 feet tall, just staring there at me. My daughter's bedroom door is closed. I just knew what it was. I knew it was something malevolent. I knew it was something that wanted to feed off of whatever negativity there was, instead of speaking or trying to turn on the light and cast it out. I chose to ignore it and not show any kind of fear. I've always thought that if you feed into the sense of fear that they're trying to project onto you, that makes them stronger. I ignore it. I do my best to go back to sleep. When I wake up at my normal time, Shas a.m., to start getting my daughter ready for daycare and myself ready for work, it's gone. There's no trace of it whatsoever. Never would have even known it was there if I hadn't seen it myself. No other real encounters happened for a little while. Up next, as he comes across a medium, He gets a stern warning stay with us. I was working on the process of moving in with my girlfriend the next weekend that I didn't have my daughter, and she was at her mom's. My girlfriend and I go to a flea market together. I like to look at antiques, old video games, and try to restore them. There happens to be a medium there. My girlfriend and I get to talking to her, making small talk, and learning more about her profession. I go back after that talk to the medium alone, tell her about my daughter's dreams and the kind of happenings that are going on. She gets this concerned look on her face, says you need to cleanse like now. She confirmed there is no way that a child her age has the kind of imagination to come up with what she's seen. In that level of detail, it was something strictly evil that was trying to attach itself to her, and it wanted to follow her from house to house. She suggested that both myself, and her mother should cleanse our respective houses. I buy sage and a smudging feather off of her. She gives me a bottle, a little cork bottle of holy oil for free, tells me to anoint my doorframe to my apartment with the shape of a cross, using the oil, and to recite the Lord's Prayer while I'm doing it. And I'll do the same thing with my daughter's forehead. The next time that I saw her, I told my mom that I had spoken with a medium. She said the medium was right, that after I do the cleanse, to close all the windows again, and put salt at the doorway and on the windowsills, to act as a seal, to keep the bad spirits from coming back in again. The next day, my girlfriend and I, after her kid goes down for his nap, we go to my apartment and get ready to do the cleanse. First, we saged ourselves once we got in, to keep any negativity from attaching onto us, to keep the spirits at bay. We put the sage in the dish and take the smudging feather, and I start walking around the apartment in a clockwise direction, just like the medium suggested that I do. I keep saying this prayer to cast out all negative spirits and energy, to bring love and peace back into the house by making the circle around the apartment. I get done with my daughter's room as soon as I go into the living room and start doing the cleanse. The front door that we left wide open, slammed itself shut out of nowhere, loud slammed with some force. I asked my girlfriend if she shut the door while I was cleansing. She tells me no, but I just saw it close itself. We finished the cleanse. We do the anointing with the holy oil, say the Lord's Prayer. We even anointed my daughter's door frames to her room, just to be safe, and left after that. I didn't go back to that apartment until the next day, when I had to pick my daughter back up from daycare. I put the oil on her forehead, say a prayer. She asks me what I'm doing. I tell her, this is to keep all negative things away from you, to keep you safe and happy. She goes, oh, okay, that's good, goes off on her own thing. Ever since then, there's never been an encounter. I haven't heard my daughter talk about nightmares or anything. The overall tension in the air, that whole feeling of negativity has gone away. It seemed like it worked, and I found out a couple things after the cleanse was done. Before the cleanse happened, whenever my daughter would wake up, in the middle of the night, her covers would be pulled off her or on the floor, or her stuffed animals that she slept with would also be on the floor. She has a toddler bed that has a guardrail by her side, that she sleeps if those were to fall. She would have to throw them, which maybe she did in her sleep too. But it is interesting to see that stopped happening after the cleanse. I do think that whatever was in there may have been doing that to mess with her in some way or to get to her. Try to get attention. I did research on my apartment over in Ambrose. When I looked up the house history, I couldn't find anything on anyone who died there. I did find out it was built in 1914, but it's almost 110 years old and is seated right next to a funeral home. There's actually 2 parking lots. There's one parking lot at the building, for the funeral home specifically, and another parking lot for tenants. The combination of an old building in a really old, almost run-down city. That happens to be next door to a funeral home. Just gives it a more creepy vibe, and makes it seem like it could be more of a hotspot for paranormal things. I think it was something malevolent. I don't think it was a ghost at all. I don't think I've ever heard of or read anything about a ghost appearing, that solid black of a mass. I have heard that usually demonic entities will appear as shadows. That dark, and I have seen ghosts before too. In the past, I've been able to make that mental comparison. When I saw it, it was something evil or demonic, trying to attach itself to my daughter, who had been going through the trauma that she had been going through in the past year. When I talked to my mom about it, she asked if her mom or I watch any scary movies while she's in bed. Or maybe she hears stuff I told her no. I would never watch anything like that when my daughter's around. My mom is a spiritual person. She's almost Wiccan, but she practices more the light side of it, healing. Cleansing, she does talk to spirits, mainly my grandfather, her dad, that died a few years ago. When I told her about the cleanse that we were going to do to get rid of the spirit attacking my daughter and me, she brought out divination rods while I was on the phone with her. They're dowsing rods. People have used them to also talk to spirits. The concept that if you let go of the rods, the spirits will manipulate them and move them to kind of make signs. She brought out divination rods, started talking to my grandfather through them. Every time I started talking, she had me on speakerphone. The rods would point to me. I asked if my grandfather had seen her before, in their old house when we used to visit after he died. They said yes. My mom asked if my grandfather would offer some kind of comfort or help protect my daughter and me, to drive this bad spirit out. The rods were again pointing to yes. It did kind of bring a comfort and kind of relieve some of my anxiety. Just knowing that, even though I was going to my apartment to cast out something evil, potentially demonic, that I had helped to, on the other side in the form of my grandfather, wanting to still watch over me, and his great-granddaughter. It all stopped kind of suddenly and abruptly, like after the cleanse. She hasn't said that she's seen anything, or had any dreams like that since. Anyway, thank you very much for listening. See you soon. See you soon. See 34. Real life nightmare. Life inside a haunted house. My name is Ariel. I grew up in a haunted house for 14 years in Richmond, British Columbia, Canada. I moved into the house in 2005. I was 7 years old. From the very beginning, this eerie feeling. I felt like somebody was watching me. Like there was always something waiting around the corner. Every time I walked into another room, I was scared somebody was going to be there. Something was going to be there. My parents, they always chalked it up to, oh, we're just living in a bigger house now. You're just getting used to it. I don't know, I always felt something was weird. I would start seeing shadows or figures. Oftentimes when I was in my room, I could see a shadow of feet underneath my bedroom door. It would just all of a sudden walk away. It wouldn't vanish, I would see it walk away. I would go and open my door, thinking that my parents were there or something. There's nobody there. Sometimes I would even hear creaking outside my door, like footsteps. A lot of nights there would be this really tall, looming shadow in the corner of my room. I would wake up in the middle of the night and see this super tall shadow that stretched from the floor all the way to my ceiling. Sometimes it was in one corner, and sometimes it was in another. It was in the shape of a tall, lanky man. I would look at it in the middle of the night, just trying to not see it, just trying to convince myself it's not there. There's nothing there. I was often paralyzed. I couldn't move. I'd hid under my blankets and hoped that I could go to sleep. Some nights it was there. It really haunted me. I would also hear footsteps. Most nights, I would hear them walking away from my door in my room. Too, sometimes they would wake me up. I'd be in my bed asleep, and I would hear a shuffling noise, with creaking along my floor, as if somebody was standing right next to me. I didn't want to turn around, look and see what or who was there, because of the footsteps. I couldn't be in my room alone in the silence at night. In order to sleep, I would have to turn the radio on, or some sort of music on. I needed to just drown out any noises that were happening during the night, along with the footsteps and the shadows. The mirrors in my house, I would see figures in mirrors. They would dip behind walls. One time, I was standing in my front entryway. We had a mirror there. Behind me would be our dining room. You could see part of it, and then the rest was behind a wall. I was putting my shoes on, and then I stood up. I was facing the mirror, and the mirror was showing the dining room behind me. I saw a girl. She was young, probably around 12 or 13, but she had raggedy, messy, matted hair and this ripped white dress. It was all dirty. I saw her walk into my dining room. It was so vivid, I thought to myself, oh my God, who's in my house right now? I remember just rushing into my dining room to be like, hello. There was nobody there. I went to go speak to my parents and I said, hey, who's this girl in the house? Did you invite somebody in it? Does she need help? Or what's going on? They just had no idea what I was talking about. I told them I was in the entryway. I saw her in the mirror. She walked into the dining room. My dad is the biggest horror fan in the whole entire world, he just thought. Oh my God, that's really cool. You actually saw her. That's so cool. He was just fascinated. Meanwhile, I'm just terrified. For the entire time that I lived at that house, my best friend at the time refused to sleep over unless I covered all of the mirrors in my room with towels or blankets. Every time she came over, she kept seeing figures and shadows in them that weren't there, that creeped me out even more. It validated me, but I thought, okay, at least maybe I'm not crazy. I am actually seeing these things. But at the same time, I was like, well, my friend gets to go home and I have to live here. I remember all of my friends telling me, when they would come over, they felt uneasy, unwelcome in my house. As soon as they stepped into my house, they felt like they shouldn't be there, like they weren't allowed to be there. They just shouldn't, which was also disheartening to hear. I used to suffer from insomnia as a child. I had nightmares in that house. a recurring one that I would have. It was from the point of view of an intruder in my house, almost as if they were giving one of those realtor tours on camera, but 1,000 times more ominous. They would just slowly glide through my house. I'd do a circle in my living room, and then go down the hallway. Very slow, it always took place at night. There was never any noise or sound associated with it. It was just vision. It would always end up outside my bedroom door. It would open my bedroom door, but I would never go in. The worst part of those nightmares in particular was I knew that I was dreaming. I was awake in the dream, but I knew that I was dreaming, and I physically could not wake up. I would always try to will myself wake up, and I physically could not. I felt stuck. I remember thinking, I'm never going to wake up again. The nightmares, they were so common. I had to hang 3 or 4 dream catchers in my room. I don't really know if they worked, but it made me feel a little bit better at least. I knew I'm going to have a nightmare tonight. I don't know what it's going to be. It's either going to be about a natural disaster, where my whole family dies, or it's going to be somebody intruding in my house. And it was just always so creepy and terrifying. I would watch doors open and close by themselves, or I would hear them in the house. Worst of all was my bedroom closet door. My closet door was on an old rusty hinge, and the track was also old. It could wake me up. Many nights I would be having a nightmare. When I would wake up from the nightmare, I would sit up and see that my closet door was open. Sometimes it would be wide open. Sometimes it would just be a crack. One night, I woke up from one of those horrible point of view, intruder nightmares, where the person had opened my bedroom door. And I remember waking up. My bedroom door was open. I looked at my closet door. It was also open. I ran to my parents' room. I woke them up and I said, "Why did you come in my room? Did you open my door, my closet door? What is going on? This isn't funny." I was just terrified, crying, hyperventilating, and eventually they calmed me down, and my mom ended up coming to sleep in my bed with me so that I could actually sleep. It's one of those experiences. I remember it to this day. I remember the exact feeling I had. A pit in your stomach again. Something is around the corner. Something is waiting for me. It felt so ominous and evil. It didn't feel like it had good intentions. The rest of Ariel's story continues right after this. Stay with us. None of my other family members experienced it. To the level that I did there were a couple times, where we all saw doors violently swing open. But nobody was as terrified as I was. Nobody else was having these dreams. Nobody else's doors were swinging open. I felt targeted. I remember the worst. Absolute worst incident, though, that still haunts me. I was 10 or 11. I was often homesick from school, because I was barely sleeping. My parents had just left for work 5 minutes earlier, and my brother was already gone on his way to school. Whenever everybody left the house, I immediately would go downstairs, just to be in the family rooms, so I could be close to an exit door if I got too scared. I came downstairs into this hallway, between the kitchen and the living room. I remember seeing my cats in the hallway. I bent down to say goodbye. Morning, give them some pets. As I bent down, I heard a closet door open from upstairs. It wasn't mine because it wasn't creaky. I looked back at my cats. Both of their ears were completely folded back. They were very upset they had both snapped their heads. To look straight upstairs, where the noise came from, Then I heard heavy footsteps thumping on the carpet, coming down the hallway towards the top of the staircase. Along with these thumping footsteps, that sounded as if someone was wearing heavy work boots. Was this horrible, sinking, all-encompassing feeling that locked me in place. I could not move. I felt paralyzed, like in my intruder dreams where I couldn't wake up. Then I hear the footsteps start thumping, one by one down the stairs. I am directly to the left of the staircase. They were halfway down the stairs. I snapped out of it, and my only thought was, I need to run. I sprinted to my neighbor's house. I was in my pajamas. I told my neighbors someone just broke in my house. They're in my house right now. She offered to call the cops, and for some reason I was like, no. I want to call my parents, but I called my dad. He pulled like a U-turn on the highway, sped all the way back. He was only 5 minutes away. Anyways, thankfully, him and my mom get home, and they rush into the house, and they start calling out for anyone in the house to come out, that they're going to call the cops, that they're on the way. I refused to go into the house. It was a good hour before my parents had convinced me to come back in, because there was nobody in the house. They checked every single closet everywhere. Nobody's there. It's empty. I finally went back in. I told my dad again. I heard a closet door open. They came out of a closet upstairs, and he's checked all the closet. There's nobody in there. He took me upstairs to open and shut the closets and identify which one. I heard as soon as he opened my brother's closet. I was like, that's the one. It's my brother's closet, he was like. That's weird. There's no way this could have opened. It was shut when he came upstairs. I refused to be alone in the house for 6 months afterwards. We knew, okay, nobody actually broke into the house. My parents were trying to explain it away. I started thinking when my parents got into the house. It was all locked except for the front door. From the inside, if there was an intruder, they couldn't have gotten out from any other door. If they had come out, the front door took like a special force to close, because they had put some weather stripping on it, or something. Nobody, not even close family friends, were able to close it. Only me and my family knew. It takes practice closing it. That's when I started getting even more scared, because I thought, okay, I am not crazy. I was not dreaming. Something happened. I don't know what it was, but what if I hadn't snapped out of it? And I just sat there and waited for whatever it was to get down the stairs and reach me. And it's still to this day. Every time I talk about it, I'm looking over my shoulder, and I still get these horrible chills. Thankfully, that only happened once, and I lived there for 10 or 11 more years before I moved out. But that definitely was not the end of the incidents. Shadows, seeing things in mirrors, lights turning on and off that continued up until I moved out in the middle of the night. I used to hear somebody messing with the beads outside of my door, and I would hear clicking on my door. Some nights I would open my door. Nobody was there. Cats were not there. They were fast asleep on my parents' bed. I would be in my room upstairs. I would hear my mom call my name, run downstairs and be like, yeah, what do you want? She always said. I didn't call for you. What are you doing down here? My dad did experience a lot of things in that house. He didn't admit it to me until a couple of years before I moved out. He saw figures and shadows flitting. From one room to another, he heard my name being called. sometimes by my brother, sometimes by my mom. He also had lights turn on and off in a lot of rooms that he was in. He actually had a piece of paper thrown at him. It was whipped from the coffee table into his face. The only thing my mom actually ever experienced was she would have things go missing. They would miraculously show up somewhere else. One time her wallet went missing. It was in her purse, obviously. My dad was looking for it all day. So was my mom. I was looking for it too. I went downstairs. Her purse was in the center of the living room. Her wallet was sitting right next to. It went to hold my mom, and I was like, "Your wallet's right here. What are you talking about?" She was white in the face. She was like, "Okay, I'm going insane." I thought that they were playing a trick on me. One time, her credit card went missing. She found it just balanced on top of her wallet. Later on in the day, none of us took it, but she would just find stuff balanced on top of her stuff, or in just a very convenient location. They tried to look up the house history, and nothing was found. There were no documented deaths in the house in Canada. It's not legally required for realtors to disclose, or even document if deaths occurred in a house. The only places that keep those records are the police department, and again, that information you can't really get unless you're related to whoever passed away. We never found anything. But I do remember when my parents were getting the keys for the place. The previous owners were there. We were just having a chat with them and saying, "Thank you, we're gonna love this house and everything." My dad, he was offering his condolences because the guy who lived there, his wife had passed away fairly recently. A year prior, my dad asked him "Oh, I'm so sorry about that. It's really tough. I hope that she was comfortable where she was." The previous owner of the house was quite cagey about where she was when she passed away. He just said, "Yep, she was comfortable." He had mentioned she hated hospitals. So we were like, was she in the house? It's possible that she passed away in the house. I know a lot of people pass away at home. It's just what happens. But I just know the house was built in 1970. It wasn't ridiculously old or anything. Whatever it was just didn't have good intentions because of how it made me feel. You might hear a door open or a door close or a light flicker, and you might think, "Oh, maybe that's just my family member visiting me." But for me, it was the feeling of dread. You can share your own story and get in touch with me over at True Scary Story.com. And up next, check out our other shows from Scary FM. A link to them in the description of the episode. Ad-free versions are available in our Scary Plus membership, which is free for 2 weeks and then 4. $99 a month after that. You can cancel anytime. Thank you very much for listening. Keep it scary, everyone. See you soon. See you soon. See you. Please listen to the story The Thing at the Top of the Stairs. In 2017 is when I was living with my parents, right before I joined the Navy. I was 18 around the time. This was my first experience with sleep paralysis. And the hag, I was in my bedroom. It was pitch black. The only illuminating light that I had was from the window. With sleep paralysis, your eyes are open, but your body can't move. I was looking at the bottom of my bed. I could see this bright green light. It kind of looked like toxic waste, like in a movie. That's kind of the color it was. I was looking at it really intensely, and I still couldn't move. I had like the mumbles, like trying to get out words like help, because I couldn't move. This was my first time ever experiencing this. So this was so different. I could see that this girl, or this woman, started to form. She had her fingers up on top of her mouth, and I could see her knuckles but not her fingers. She was laughing. I could feel my body gain a little bit of life, and I just kept rocking. Then I finally jumped up, because I was so mad. I was like, who's in my house when I got up to her? She dissipate. That was my, first experience ever with the so-called hag. I didn't tell anyone because I didn't know really what it was. My dad was always the kind of guy, ghosts aren't real, but he had a very big understanding of what the supernatural, as I could always understand. We had cousins who had played with the Ouija board. Back in the 80s, they were asking it questions. They asked the question, when are we going to die? The Ouija board gave them a date. The date the Ouija board gave them. They crash into a semi. Another semi crash in the back of them and sandwich the car. My dad, ever since that happened, he doesn't like to talk about the paranormal. He knows it's there. He doesn't want to ever talk about it. It was a very taboo subject growing up. Me and my sisters, we would talk about it sometimes, but not like that. My sister, she traced back our lineage. There's some witchcraft throughout there. We've never really gotten into anything like that in 2019. I met my husband. We had started dating. We both got stationed up in Washington. When we were moving up there, he was like, hey, I'm gonna get a house with our friends. You wanna come move in? So we got this house. It was in the woods, pretty much. It was really nice. Had a really big backyard. The vibe of the house was always weird. It always felt like somebody was in there watching you. Do you hear the creaks? There is one night I remember I woke up. Our bed was against one wall, and we had a walk-in closet. And then the bathroom was right next to it. The bathroom had this white mist coming out of it. It was wrapping over my husband. I looked at it, and I thought it was so weird. There's no fog outside, there's no windows open, there's no shower on, we don't even have a humidifier in the room. I was like, I have to be dreaming, but I could see it moving. It was moving towards me. I just said, I'm gonna go to sleep. I don't want to wake him up. He's gonna just shrug it off. He's half asleep. The next day, I did tell him, I said, hey, last night there was this mist over you, and I don't know what is going on. I've never seen this before. I went into the little town that we had to. This magic shop, I need to get some sage. The white sage so I can cleanse my house. And I need something for a protection crystal. They given me some type of protection crystal. The lady was like, oh, you're in the military? I said, yes. And she said, well, because you're around all these bases. That these bases bring a lot of negative energy. You bring that home with you. I'd gotten these crystals, so you sleep with them under your pillow, and you should not feel anything. I was pretty much good after that. Didn't have any experiences. But then, me and my husband were still married, but he had gotten orders to San Francisco. And my command moved. This was right when COVID happened. I was in this apartment for 8 months until we moved. I can remember. The second time I had my experience with the hag, my husband was able to come down. They had lifted up the restrictions. We were in bed one night. I woke up. I had a bright white light. This time it was on the side of my face. I felt her hands and her feet crawling across the bed, like it felt like I liked tons. Every time they would hit. I couldn't move. She was on top of my chest. She put all of her weight on. I could hear this loud, a vacuum-like sucking sound with it. It felt like my soul was being sucked out of my body. I literally felt like my life was flashing before my eyes. I don't even remember falling to sleep back after that. I just remember I can still see everything and feel the weight on my chest. The hair was all in my face. I couldn't even see her face, but I could see her then. I could see teeth. I could see white mist from me flowing into her. And I was like, this is so weird. That was my second experience with her. We only lived there for a couple months, because I always felt that apartment had a really bad vibe. The way my room was set up was, I had this big vanity next to the bathroom. After that, I could not sleep near the mirror. There's this big superstition. Don't sleep next to mirrors. It's a portal, you know. I had to move my bed. I really didn't have a way because I had the vanity. And then my closet doors were. Those closet doors that had mirrors on them. There wasn't much I could do. And I don't like to sleep with the doors open, that I've always feel like someone's looking in. And especially in that apartment. I always felt like somebody was looking in on me around the time I would take my body. And I would make a triangle with a pillow over my head. So if I woke up, I wouldn't see something directly. If there was somebody in the room, or if some spirit was watching me. I had went on deployment. My husband had moved into a new house, in a military housing. I had got back from deployment in February 2022. Things were good. That's when I started to notice a month or so after. The house had a kind of a weird vibe to it. It's right next to here, next to all these bases. Military bases, they bring a lot of negative energy. It's not anything intentional. It just happens. I always felt at the top of our stairs, there was this dark mist. But it's nothing I've ever seen, like project or actually see form. But that's the only way I can feel. I can describe it's like this really dark mist. And it's sad and angry. Sean's story continues right after this stay with us. I wasn't the only one I had talked to my friend. She had felt that too. I would always feel eyes on me in the house. But it wasn't like I don't want you here. It was like I need help in a way. But then there's also, sometimes there's that angry presence. Like I really don't want you here. But I can't tell you to leave. After so long, I was just like, whatever. I kept doing the pillow thing. I didn't want to see anything. I didn't even like being in the house by myself. I started hanging out with my best friend. Me and her, I'm talking. We were doing almost every day together. When we'd have people over, drinks would be flowing and we'd like, hey, no one's allowed to drive home, so she would stay over a lot. There was one night we had went out and came back. She was there sleeping on the couch. It's a recliner set, everything. There's no way she can fall off of this, unless she actually threw herself off. She says that someone pulls her. Full force pulls her. She's the only one downstairs. It's just her. She woke up. She looked around, thinking that someone's here. There's no one there. And she was like, I turned on the TV. I sat there until 5 o'clock in the morning. And I left immediately. She was so scared. Not too long after that, we had more people over. One night, we're all sitting on the couch. It's me and the two of our other friends. Everybody had already went to bed. Him and the doorbell starts ringing. My dog's going crazy. The doorbell start ringing. I look outside. There's no one there. It's weird. My husband comes downstairs. He opens up the door. This is probably the worst thing he could have done. I think he let something in when he opened that door. He walks out, looks around. There's no one there. So going back, goes to sleep, everything's fine. Not too long after that, stuff starts moving around our house too. We had this like electric fly swatter. You get flies like crazy for some weird reason. It's probably just the heat. I remember there was one time I'm home alone by myself, sitting in the living room. It's a direct, open shot, as you can see from where our key rack is at, where that's hanging to the living room. You can see it directly. That thing is swinging back and forth, like someone had pushed it. I had not went in there at all that morning. I'm sitting there confused. No one else is home with me. I'm just watching it. I've recorded it and sent it to our group chat. I said, guys, I'm the only one home. I haven't even been in the kitchen this morning. Look at this. Everybody's like, oh, there's ghosts in the house. Me had been getting this feeling, the thing at the top of the stairs. Finally, I had myself was asking neighbors about stuff that's happened around. The way the neighborhood is set up. It's a big courtyard in the middle. 4 streets surrounding each other. On the other side of the courtyard, there was a man. He had murdered his wife, and he had left. I've heard 2 sets of the stories, but the one I read online, it said that he had kept her in a deep freezer. For 2 years, he had said that she went missing. There was an incident in the courtyard where she had ran outside and said that she was cutting herself or something. That's what he was saying. These 2 years goes by everybody's what? Where is she? They're asking him, where did she goes? I think she just ran off. The day he's supposed to move out and move across the country. Her body's found. He threw her body in the canal. The police had found her. They knew who she was because she'd been missing. They come to his house and everything. And they're like, hey, we found your wife. He already has a whole new fiance and everything. They're about to move. He goes, oh, that's crazy. Come to find out, he was the one who did it. They expedited him back here when all that had happened. But it's not just one property. All the properties are connected with each other, especially this courtyard, is what keeps everybody connected to. I feel like maybe it was her spirit, still asking for help in a way, or just being angry that she can't leave. She's stuck there. Even till the day that we had moved out. We moved out in November of 2023. I still felt really, awkward and weird being in there by myself. I've just felt the heaviness of sadness and anger, of not wanting to be there and needing the help. I don't think anybody else felt that, but my friend, she was the only one that, when I spoke to her about this yesterday, she was like, no, I felt that too at the top of your stairs. She said I didn't like ever going upstairs, unless you were up there, because I felt like something was up there. It's crazy I'm the only one that felt like that, but that was really that. Now we've moved to the other side, in this brand new built place. I don't really get the vibe that something is here, or anything like that, but it doesn't take long for something to show itself. So I've always been a believer, ever since I've experienced more and more and more. It makes me start to realize, there's more. There's more things out there. The case Sean mentioned is true and verifiable. The victim's name is Elizabeth Rick Sullivan, who had been missing in 2014. And for 2 years, nobody knew of her whereabouts, when her body was found in the San Diego Bay. Investigators discovered that she had been stored in a freezer for 2 years. And even though we don't cover this specific case, on our new show called Murders, you can find other terrifying cases of what humans are truly capable of. You can find Murders on your podcast app right now. To share your own story on this podcast, go to TrueScaryStory.com. The link is in the description of this episode. To get ad-free stories and to support the show, check out scaryplus.com. Thank you very much for listening. Keep it scary, everyone. See you soon. See you soon. Please listen to the story, A Final Message from Beyond. I'm Kalen. I host Heart Starts Pounding, a podcast of horrors, hauntings, and mysteries. It's a show for those with dark curiosities. We cover lots of paranormal, spooky dark history, and true crime stories. And part of the reason why I'm really interested in those kinds of stories is because of an experience I had growing up, when I think I had a haunted piano in my house. Back in the day, my dad bought a piano from an estate sale. There was a man who passed away, and he had this upright piano from the 70s or 80s maybe. I don't know how old it was. So my dad, who was a piano player himself, bought it and brought it to our house. We're like, oh my God, yay. I was probably like 5 years old at the time. So I started taking piano lessons, and I would sit and I would play this piano. And there was always kind of like a weird vibe to it. Right when you walk in the front door, it was to the left, and to the right was the stairs. And I remember it was around the time we got the piano that I would start, like running up the stairs to get to my room. Like I couldn't ever at night walk by this room. I always had to run, because I would always get really spooked. It just had a weird vibe, but during the day it felt okay. So I would play the piano and practice. One day my dad and I are walking up the stairs, and we get to the point where, as you're walking up the stairs, eventually you can't see the piano anymore, because you get to like the second story. And just as my head clears the second story, and I can't see the piano anymore, my dad's in front of me. We hear the piano play. It's like something jumped on the piano. And immediately my dad's like, get the cat. We think it's maybe the cat jumped on the piano. I run downstairs. Cat's nowhere to be found. I'm like, Dad, I don't think the cat's down here. And we go upstairs, and the cat is sleeping on my dad's bed. And we both looked at each other, and both of us were like, whoa. And from that moment on, we kind of started joking that the piano was haunted. Fast forward about a year from then, I'm getting a little bit better at playing the piano. I can sit down and play a song by myself. So I'm sitting, and I'm playing the piano. And as I'm playing, I start getting this weird feeling. It's like the feeling that something's watching me. And I think, sometimes my dad would come in and watch me play. Whatever. And I'm thinking that my dad is behind me. So I'm starting to show off a little bit. I'm playing more and more. And I look down at my left hand, because I'm about to play a little bit with my left hand. And at the bottom of the piano, the lower register, the 3 lowest notes, all pressed down together, as if a hand was on the piano pressing them. But nothing else was touching the piano. Just the 3 lowest notes all pressed down together. They make the noise, and then they come up, and I bolted out of the room. It was the strangest thing I'd ever seen in my life. It felt like someone was standing behind me. And then I watched the piano play by itself. So I run out, and my dad's like, what's going on? What happened? And I'm like, the piano played itself. It played by itself. I don't know what's going on. And it was another moment of us just being like, oh, that's very spooky that something's going on. Over the years, some weird stuff like that would happen. A note would play by itself. I would be upstairs. I would hear the piano kind of make a noise. And not that. It was like a funny joke that the piano was haunted, but we knew when it played by itself. We were all like, that's the haunted piano. And we'd all get a chill, like it always stayed scary to us. But we tried to cope with it by laughing about it. The weirdest thing that happened was, when I was 14 years old, my grandmother passed away. She was really old, it was very expected. And it was June when she died. So it was summertime, school had just ended. It was maybe the day after she died that I was home, playing the piano. And I was thinking to myself and playing the piano. And next to us, we had this box of sheet music. And we always cycle through the sheet music every year. So Christmas music comes out during Christmas. But on off season, it's at the bottom of the box. It's so far away from me to be able to pick up, which is important to the story. But I'm playing the piano, and all of a sudden behind me as I'm playing, and I'm thinking about my grandma, and I'm really sad. I start hearing something kind of whooshing through the air behind me, as if a piece of paper is kind of gently falling behind me, and then I hear paper kind of grazed the wood floor behind me. And I turn around and there's a piece of sheet music that looks like it's been ripped out of a book. And that is a huge faux pas in my house. You do not rip sheet music out of a book. You open the book and you fold it. Or you find something to hold the pages open. But every book has to remain intact. So I turn around and I'm none of us ripped a piece of sheet music out of a book. And it was just one page by itself. And I pick it up and it's Away in a Manger, the Christmas song. And I just get this really weird feeling why is one piece of sheet music, which is way packed away at this point of the year, ripped out of a book this? It just did not feel like us. But I end it something came over me that was you need to play this song right now. This sheet music just came out of nowhere. So I put it on the piano and I start playing it, and I hear my dad running through the house, barreling towards the room I'm in. And he has tears in his eyes and he's why are you playing Away in a Manger? And I was it's gonna sound crazy. But this piece of sheet music just appeared from nowhere, and I just felt I had to play it. And he was growing up, that was your grandmother's favorite Christmas song, and both of us just started crying. It was we didn't even have to say it, but in that moment, we were she wanted me to play that song one more time. And I don't know if the piano was some sort of conduit, a portal of some sort. Maybe. I don't know. I'm not a scientist, I don't know if it just had some sort of connection where she was able to make that last request through the piano, specifically. But after that, nothing weird ever happened with the piano again. That was the last thing. So, we have Kaylin here with us from Heart Starts Pounding. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us. I do have a few questions about it. Do you know where the piano came from and all of that? I don't know exactly who it was or the house. I just know, and I asked my dad later on, exactly where he got it from and all. He knows is that a guy passed away, had the piano, and he went and bought it for cheap. And you always hear something about the haunted piano, like in some classic stories, but never heard one, on the show. I know, yeah. It is kind of like a haunted house kind of trope. But no, it really was for us a very real thing. Wow. We got rid of that piano a few years later, and then upgraded to a nicer one. And there's been nothing weird with it. 'Cause it was like a new piano. It's just that one. When all this stuff was happening, did you ever talk with anybody else in the house? About it, just my dad. My dad was the only other person that played the piano, so we were really the only two interacting with it. I have a sibling who's also in the house and was like, always thought that the house was haunted in some way. Like always felt, and same thing. Like even to this day runs past that room, just from growing up. Like always having that weird feeling. But it was mainly just my dad and I that were like, something's going on, we don't know what it is, but something's going on, wow. So like it was normal for you then to like, oh, this thing is haunted, I would say? Yeah, normal in a way that was still scary though. Like we still were freaked out by it being haunted. It was like one of those unspoken things though, that both of us were like, the piano's haunted. No one for a second was like, yeah. But I don't know if ghosts are real. Maybe something else is going on. Both of us were just like, no, it's haunted. That's bizarre. Yeah, it was very bizarre. Oh man, very bizarre. Thank you, Kaylin. And everyone make sure to check out. Heart starts pounding. Did you buy secondhand items? And have you suspected any of them to be haunted? Let me know, remember, that you can get ad-free episodes and support what we're doing by trying out Scary Plus. And if you have a story, go to truescarystory.com. I'll link to everything in the description of this episode. If you're following the show, I'll talk to you next week. Thank you very much for listening. Keep it scary, everyone. See you soon, everyone. See you soon. Please listen to the story, A Night at the Resort. My story takes place, June of 2022. It happened at Cabo San Lucas, Mexico, at a 5-star resort. We were invited by some of my husband's friends, and it was a quick 3-day vacations. We were excited we arrived. The resort was beautiful, picturesque. It was busy with summer travelers. As we checked in, the front desk informed us that there was a room ready for us on the first floor, but if we waited until 4 o'clock, they could offer us a suite with an ocean view. So of course, we were going to take that. We accepted the offer, and we decided to wait till 4 p.m. We hung out by the pool, had some snacks, just enjoyed the sun. At 4 p.m., we were given our key, and we went up to the suite. As soon as I walked in, I was like, something doesn't feel right here. I really don't know what it was. It just felt very cold. Too much of a contrast from the sunny outside to almost like an icebox. I thought, maybe it's just the AC. Then I noticed that there was this large chair that was positioned in the middle of the hallway, blocking the adjacent room. Sometimes in those hotels, you can open up to suites and hang out in both areas. I tried moving that chair out of the way, but it was so heavy it just wasn't going to happen. We walked into the bedroom suite. There was 2 queen beds. They were pushed all the way along to the walls. One of the beds was blocking the closet door. Very weird. The other was pushed all the way against the other wall, and it was blocking an entrance to the adjacent restroom. I thought that's an odd way to arrange a bedroom. But okay, my husband was really excited. He was opening up the curtains, excited about that ocean view, which was beautiful ocean crashing. You can see the pools beneath us. We dropped off our luggage, and we went to go enjoy the pool. We didn't return to the room until well past midnight. We showered, got ready for bed. I was very fussy. I was struggling to sleep. I tossing and turning and tossing and turning. Finally, I just started drifting off to sleep. I began to have this nightmare. And this nightmare, there was something. a presence on the right side of my body. It wasn't anything, but it was the feeling that something was there in this dream. I was just searching through a very dark room. Through a darkness, my hands were in front of me. I was looking for a light switch. As soon as I reached for that light switch, I felt it, and something grabbed my right wrist, violently pulled me to the left. At that time, I awoke with this gasp. My right hand was actually over my husband's body, and I was on top of him. I startled him awake. He just said, "Oh, you know you're okay. Stay calm. You had a nightmare." He kind of just tried soothing me. But I was not about to go back to sleep. I stayed awake until I saw that sunrise. It could have been around 4 in the morning. Day 2, we're out all day in the sun, having fun eating, drinking. We go back to the room well past midnight. As I'm in the restroom getting ready for bed, my husband starts turning off all the lights, making sure all the doors are locked, curtains are shut. He comes to the door of the restroom and says, "Have you been there the entire time?" I let him know that I was. I'll hurry up, so he can brush his teeth and get ready for bed. But he has this look on his face, like something is not okay. He says, "Swear to me you've been in the restroom the whole time." I'm like, "Yes, I swear I've been in the restroom. The whole time, what's going on?" He says, "I was waiting for you in the bedroom." And I started noticing that. The lights started turning off one by one by one by one. This is impossible because in the suite, there was a living room area, a kitchen area, a hallway, and there was about 8 or 9 light switches. They all worked together, not one by one. I didn't know what to say to him. He just said, "Do you believe me?" Of course I believe you. I shared with him ever since we got here. I just don't know about this room. I have a really weird feeling. I'm quite sensitive to paranormal activity. I do a lot of energy work. I'm open to all sorts of occult things. Something was off in that space. That night, we both had a really difficult time sleeping. As soon as we saw the sunlight, we were out that door. Our final day there. It was the same as the previous days. Out all day back, well past midnight, and we were both nervous and uncomfortable. But it was our last night, so whatever. Let's just enjoy. I begin to fall asleep. I was so fatigued. From the lack of sleep of the previous days, I begin to have that similar nightmare as the first night. I'm in a dark room. I'm looking for a light switch. Then something starts grabbing my right wrist. This time is different. My right wrist is being squeezed. It is going from my wrist to my elbow to my shoulder. It's starting to get painful. I'm trying to wake up, but I'm experiencing sleep paralysis. I get really upset, almost like a switch flipped. I was no longer fearful. I was upset that this entity was touching me. I began calling for my guardian angels. I called protective ancestors. I also Catholic, so I called for Archangel Michael. I really demanded for this entity to release me, and not touch me had crossed a boundary. At that moment, I awake with this deep gasp. I sit up straight, look at my right arm. It is red, and it hurts, as my husband awakes as well. I show him my arm. He holds me, and he says, "Okay, it's 6 a.m. Let's pack up. Let's get out of here." I am really upset that this entity is messing with me. I let my husband know I'm not scared right now. I'm not afraid. I want to check in through meditation to see what is going on in this room. I'm able to look up what is called the Akashic, records of people, businesses, places that is like a library of the universe, all records that have been, will be, and are through meditation. I can get information. So I called for some spiritual protection, and I began checking in what's going on here. I see messages of an image of a young woman. She was sexually assaulted in that room. That's what I'm getting. It seemed like she was drunk, and she was taken there. She willingly went with this young man. But she wasn't ready to be intimate. She just wanted to hang out. The guy held her down during this assault. That's why my arm was being held down. I started inquiring about the lights. What was going on with the lights in the bedroom? The information that I received there was that it was actually my husband's guardian, his mother who has transitioned. The lights turning on were to protect us, so that if the lights were on, we really wouldn't have experienced any of that energy. What I had really experienced in that room was the residual energy of that young woman. I felt much better once I knew what I had experienced. I cleansed myself when I got home. First, made sure that there was no energy that attached itself to me or my husband. I began sharing this experience with some of my friends, who are healers and birth workers doulas. They let me know that. Because I'm now practicing this type of meditation and can channel. I'm kind of like a little antenna, and my Wi-Fi is on, and I can see or sense various energies. Due to this, I have to carry spiritual protection when I stay, or I go places that have a lot of energy, such as hotels, hospitals, or historical sites. This also came into play when I went to Las Vegas, later on that fall, where I had taken some of my protection with me, and it flew across the room while I was sleeping, and I wasn't bothered at all. That was pretty wild. I went to Las Vegas November of 2022. I brought my little pouch of protective herbs. A friend of mine had sent me a little jar of yarrow. Yarrow is a flower, an herb that is for fevers, for stopping bleeding. But energetically, it's for protection and for boundaries. And she said that was very helpful to her when she travels. So I brought that little bottle with me and had a fantastic time with my friends. In the evening, I placed my little protective pouch next to the dresser. Next to me, and I put the bottle of yarrow flower essence next to me and blissfully went to bed. I don't know what time it could have been. In Vegas, all hours of the day. People are going in and out of the casinos. I heard while I was sleeping this loud crash, but I'd assume it was someone walking by and had knocked on our door, accidentally stumbling to their room. Didn't really pay any mind. The morning we awoke, I noticed that my little pouch was on the floor. Next to my bed, I figured, oh, maybe it's leathered out from the dresser. I was walking towards the restroom, which is next to the door of the hotel, and I see my little bottle of yarrow in front of the door. It is absolutely impossible that that little bottle could have gotten there on its own, because that was a good 8 feet away, 8 feet in a diagonal to the left. I woke my husband up and I said, "Hey, did you happen to pick up my little bottle?" Which I knew he hadn't. That would have been odd of him. He just looked at me and said, "No, I didn't touch your things. I just picked it up and just laughed, because I felt it was. That crash that I had heard in the evening was that little bottle rolling to the front of the room, where maybe there was some energy that was not very light near me. I now always carry my little pouch and my little bottle. whenever I'm going to stay. In spaces that are of high energy, we are all so sensitive. I think it's just, we always know when something's off. But we don't trust our instinct of what it is. We kind of just feel I'm off. It's not the room. I used to travel a lot, and I had always had a hard time sleeping in hotel rooms the very first night. At that time, I didn't understand. Why do I have such trouble sleeping? My justification used to be, well, I'm not in my bed. But it's more than that. It's all the people's energy that have been in that space that are making you restless. I would recommend get maybe an obsidian or onyx and rub that over the bed, just to absorb any energy that was left behind in that bed, because we can't do a smoke cleanse in a non-smoking room. Another thing that I would probably do is agua de Florida water that is used for cleansing. I pack that in a little spray bottle and spray to try to get it a little bit more calm and clear. Some people use vibration, like a little bell. The sound and the vibration kind of clears things away, but it's really our intention of I don't want to be bothered, and I'm just clearing away anything that doesn't belong to me. I don't want anything to attach and come with me. I just wanted the rest. Those travelers, I think, need to be very conscious of your spiritual hygiene, because it is definitely real, and especially for people that are more at tune. I gotta spray myself down. I gotta whatever. If you are of the Catholic faith, get yourself a little bit of holy water. Just rub yourself with your hands. Something that, is intentional that I'm cleaning. I'm not attaching to the story. I'm not attaching to anything attached with this. And fresh and clean all the time. Totally just learning this stuff. I come from a strong Catholic background, which I still am a cultural Catholic, but I'm also open to just all the beautiful and bizarre, universal things, that there's more than we could ever comprehend. But the more you know, the more you have to be conscious of, okay, I'm not feeling weird for no reason. There's something my body, my cells are telling me something's off. I need to trust myself. Idalia sent me a few items to help with protection while I travel following the recording of the story. Thank you very much for that, Idalia. I am aware that listening to so many true experiences like this may come with consequences. Thank you very much for listening. See you soon. See you soon. Please listen to the story Bad Intentions. We lived in a neighborhood called Pilsen in Chicago. One of my aunts lived across the street, but I used to love to go over there, to be with my cousins. The houses in Pilsner are really big old structures. It was an old, predominantly immigrant neighborhood, but the houses are Victorian style. They have a big living room, big dining rooms, small bedrooms, big kitchens, a lot of hidden closets, and little places where you can hide. Play hide and go seek. They had little crawl spaces in some of the closets. Those were our favorite places to play. In my cousin's house, there was a closet that had little stairs. Inside the little stairs was another little crawl space. We used to go in there and talk about the things that kids talk about, but you can hear things that were going on in the other rooms. One time, me and my cousins were playing in there, and we heard my aunts did not like him. They called him a bruto, a bad man, or a witch. My aunt had been married and loved her husband. To go with this uncle, they all said that he had practiced witchcraft on her, to get her to go with him. That was unheard of at that time for for someone to leave their first husband and to go with someone else. And he was much, much older than my aunt. Much older. Most of my aunts were afraid of him. My uncle, he was calling out to things. He was saying bad words, calling for revenge, and we got scared. My cousins were telling me. He sometimes does that when he gets angry at people. We're not supposed to go into his room or talk to him. We heard him stop and walk out of the room. I went into his room, into his closet. We found a little box, a little black box. Inside of it were little bottles of oils. Hair crossed his. He caught us looking in there. He yelled at his kids. "What are you doing in here? And you're never supposed to come in here." I got really scared and he told me to go home. I went home. I was really scared. My mom asked me what happened. What did you do over there? Because my aunt called her and said that I had been misbehaving and not to come back. My mom really reprimanded me very much. I was very sorry. She told me to apologize to my aunt and uncle, which I did. I couldn't get out of my mind the stuff that happened with the closet and the things that I found. I was sitting with my dad in the kitchen. I used to wait for my dad to get home to eat with him. My dad was a very religious man. He was always in the church. He was a deacon. Every time I had a problem at school or anything, I would always see him reading his Bible. He would always say, "There's a story in the Bible about that, about bullying. If I had a problem with my brother," he would say, the story of Joseph. He had problems with his brother. He was always talking to me about the Bible. I told him what happened. He was furious, very upset. He dropped his plate of frijoles, grabbed me from my hand and started opening the door to go across the street, and grabbed me and didn't say a word. My dad knocked on their door. He confronted my uncle. He said, "I don't ever want you to expose my daughter to any of that kind of stuff. You shouldn't do that to your children either." He looked at me and didn't say anything. My dad just left and he said, "You don't ever have to be afraid to tell me anything." Like that again. After that happened, one day I was homesick from school. I heard the doorbell ring. This happened a couple of weeks later. I opened the door. It was my uncle. It's 10 o'clock in the morning. My aunt wasn't with him. I didn't know why he was there. I told my mom, "My uncle's here." She was surprised. Also, she said, "Okay, let him in." She told me to keep him in the living room, so I just stayed there with him. I didn't talk to him and put my head down. He said, "Come here." I didn't want to go to him, so my mom called him to have some coffee in the kitchen. Then he laughed right away. I don't know what he came to tell my mother that day. Whatever it was, it scared my mom. That same night I went to sleep. I shared a room with my little brother. Something that caught my attention. I saw a light coming in through the corner of my bedroom. As I looked up, I saw a man. He had an old chauffeur kind of uniform on, and he had dark glasses on. His skin was really pale. I could just see his hand. His hand had a black ring on it. I could see the buttons of his jacket. He was looking at me. His face was so pale. His lips were blackish. He looked at me, and he had the dark glasses. I could see he was looking straight at me. He just stayed there, staring, peeking. I just froze, and I tried to pretend that it was a dream. I know I saw him. I kept closing my eyes and opening them up again. He was still there. He pointing at me and nodding, yes. I let out a scream and called for my mom. My mom came into the room and said, "What's going on?" I said, I saw this man." It's like, "Oh, you're just dreaming, don't worry. You did something you shouldn't have done. And now you're feeling bad. That's why you can't sleep." She stayed with me and she prayed with me. I went to sleep when she was next to me. I was very rattled for the next few days. Another night I was asleep. I heard a thump right in front of my bed. A big thump. I opened my eyes and I saw, like a cane that looked like a rain cane. A cane that makes the sound of rain. It was being held by a woman in a dark dress. There was a little girl with her that had sunken eyes. She had blondish hair. The little girl was so sad. She was being held by the wrist by this woman. The other hand she had on that cane. She looked at me, and she thumped again real hard on the floor. I knew she wanted me to get up. She was staring down at me. I didn't know what to do. I was frozen. She thumped again. I knew that I had to get up. I sat up in my bed, and she moved out of my way, towards the door to go out into the dining room. As I looked at her, she looked back at me like, "Are you coming?" I got up. I started to follow them into the living room. I don't know why I started to follow them. I knew I had to. I knew I did. I walked into the parlor. What looked like a parlor. The whole living room was different. We had a fireplace. A real fireplace in the home. My mom always put a chair there because the cold air would come into the house from the chimney. The chair wasn't there. There was a fire actually going in the fireplace. There were all these people sitting in the living room, looking at me. There was that man. He was dressed in that same chauffeur outfit, with his cap on the dark glasses. He started walking towards me. I saw the room. I was just amazed at the room. The furniture was different. The curtains. Everything was different, except that there was a picture of my mom and dad. I looked at it. Was my mom and dad's wedding picture. It's a black and white picture. And as I looked at it, it crashed down on the floor. Everything stopped. And I was standing in that dark living room. I was weeping and wailing. This time my dad came into the... I was like, "What is going on?" "What are you doing?" I said, "Dad." And I explained to him what had just happened. He just told me that everything was going to be okay. Nothing was going to happen. He believed me. Then my mom came and said, "I think she's just making things up." My dad said, "No, I do believe. My daughter, leave her alone." I was crying. I went back into the room. I couldn't get that out of my mind. Margarita's story continues right after this. Stay with us. Through the weeks, the teachers started to send notes home to my parents, saying what was wrong with me. My grades were dropping. There was a lot of arguing in the house. My mom and dad were fighting all the time. One of the arguments started to stem up because my uncle would no longer let my aunt come to visit. Our house and I was not allowed to go over there. I told one of my aunts what was going on, and she came and talked to me, and she said, "I know what's going on. I know he's a brujo. What you have is something called Sosto. He scared you. He scared you. And you can't be afraid of those things. You can't give that power. You have to trust that all is going to be okay. There is always a power bigger than anything bad. For everything that is bad. If you believe in bad, you have to believe in good. She told me the next time that woman came, or anybody came into my room, to tell them to go away, that you are not going with them, that you are protected. Do not allow them to take you anywhere. The next time it happened. A few days later, I saw the man again. This time, he put his hand out like, "You're coming with me." I said, "No, I'm not going with you." I started to yell loud. And no, I'm not going. I thought I was talking. But I wasn't. I couldn't talk. But in my mind, I was saying, I'm not going with you. I'm not going. I was terrified of him. He started to walk towards me. At that time, my brother started to rumble in his sleep. I moved from my bed to his side of the bed. I lied down next to my brother and started to hug my brother. I closed my eyes. I said, "I'm not going. I'm not going." I started hearing the thumping from the woman. I couldn't look. I kept saying, "I'm not going." It seemed endless, but it finally stopped. It stopped, I felt like. There was clean air. I felt it leave. I felt the chills, the darkness, the dampy smell, because it came with a musty kind of smell, like wet dirt, but with garbage. It's a smell you can't ever forget, the musky, dirty smell of earth. And it was gone. I didn't smell it anymore. Weeks later, the arguing between my parents settled down. Things started going back to normal in our house. They would greet each other. They would start laughing together. We started being our regular family again. It was at that time that my uncle and aunt decided to move back to Puerto Rico. They decided they were going to pick up and take the kids back to Puerto Rico. But before that happened, my aunt got very sick. She had to be put in a home. She had a series of strokes. And my uncle left her to live in Puerto Rico. After that, we heard stories about him joining some kind of church and getting arrested for hurting children. Eventually, my aunt and him divorced. We heard nothing from him again. My other cousins had run-ins with him. He died a terrible death as well. He caught, gangrene. He died in prison for whatever it was that he did in Puerto Rico. I can't really say, I just know that was something against a child in a church. He was accused and found guilty. In Puerto Rico, he was a chauffeur, but I think it was in another aspect of him, because he was a chauffeur in Puerto Rico. He used to drive a taxi or drive people. I do know that. He used to work for a rich family in Puerto Rico. Driving them around, I found that out much later. But that would make sense why I saw him like that. None of them want to see him at the end. They're all good people to this day. I adore my cousins. They grew up to be wonderful, wonderful people. They remembered their father with love. But not many of our other relatives agree with that. My aunt tells me how brave I was to be able to confront him. And that's a lesson I've learned. I have to always face my fears with courage. Years later, I would talk to my brother about this. I was telling him, I used to be really scared in that house. He said, "Oh yeah, the lady with the cane, right?" I'm like, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, I remember when she used to come into our room and try to take you away." I said, "Why didn't you ever say anything?" He said, "Because I didn't want her to take me. I'd rather her try to take you than to take me." He validated it for me, my brother told me. No matter where I am, I will always protect you. My brother died in 2020 from COVID. I still feel him around me. Sometimes when I'm scared or feeling lonely, I'll feel his presence around me, and I know that he's close. I've also learned now that there are some things that are always good here. And in the afterlife, you can embrace those. Thank you very much for listening. Keep it scary, everyone. See you soon. See you soon. Please listen to the story. A warning from my mother. What happens when eerie encounters refuse to be ignored? One man's life has been haunted by inexplicable events. But now, avoiding the supernatural may no longer be an option. My name is Edwin, and here is Andrea's true scary story. My name is Andrea. I'm from South Africa. My mom is the very spiritual one. And because I'm Portuguese, we are part of the Christian Catholic religion. She would tell me a lot growing up about seeing things, or giving messages, or getting messages from somebody, saying something is about to happen in your life. She didn't really influence me as much. And my dad also didn't quite believe in it as much as what she did, but throughout my life, there's been a few small things that happened that I'd talk to her about, and then she would always turn around to me and say, "Yeah, you see, it's real." When I was 8 or 9 years old, just after my sister was born, we used to live in this very big mining house. So in South Africa, when you work for the mines, which is what my dad used to do, they would provide housing. Now, the housing that was provided was built back in the 1960s. And in this house, there's a lot of wooden floors. You could hear quite well when somebody was walking around through the hallways towards the bedrooms, towards the sitting room. It was quite difficult to sneak around the house. The first encounter occurred one night when I was taking a bath in my parents' bathroom. All of our rooms were on the same side of this house. If you walked down the hallway facing the rooms, my bedroom would be on the right, and my parents' would be on the left. The bathroom would also be on the left, but it would be just before my parents' bedroom. I was taking a bath in their bathroom this one evening. My dad was working late due to some incident that happened at the mine. I was playing with my toys in the bath when I heard footsteps coming down the hallway. I could tell that this was my mom walking towards the bedroom. When I saw her walk past, I greeted her and kept playing, thinking everything's normal. She went to fold up laundry in the bedroom. After a few minutes, I heard heavier footsteps coming down the hallway, so I shouted for my dad, thinking that he had arrived home safely. My mother shouted from the bedroom saying, "No, your dad can't be home because he hasn't called me yet. He's still underground dealing with the incident." So I thought that was strange, but carried on playing anyways. And then I heard footsteps coming down that hallway, towards the bedroom again, still sounding heavy. So I thought again that it was my father. I shouted to my mom that, "Hey, Dad is home." But she shouted at me again, saying, "No, he's not home. She still hasn't received the call. He's still at work. He's still underground." Right after she told me that, I heard the footsteps coming towards the bathroom again. But it's as if they were going to walk across the entrance to the bathroom. So I waited, and I looked to see if there was anyone coming through. But I didn't see anyone. The footsteps stopped, and I was looking at the hallway and didn't see anybody there. I faced basically the bathroom door, which was open, and it looked like some weird black cloak disappeared behind the bathroom door. As I was looking at it, I freaked out. I shouted for my mom to come get me. I told her what had happened, so she came running. I kept staring at the door. When she came in, I pointed to the door, trying to explain to her what I just saw. And then she just told me that if I ever see darkness, or see anything that's out of the ordinary, I must pray. She would always be watching over us with regards to the spiritual world. You know, the paranormal. And sometimes she would even tell us things that either hasn't happened yet, and then it would happen, or you know something that we wouldn't have told her, but she knows about it. It's actually frightening sometimes. I'm even getting goosebumps right now, thinking about it, and I have a funny feeling that when I am done here, I'm gonna probably get a phone call from her saying that, no, were you talking about me? 'Cause stuff like that happens. It's weird. This was a few months later. I used to have a pet hamster named Alex in my bedroom. If you go straight into my bedroom, my bed would be on your left. Then I would have a desk at the end of the bed, and then I would have this huge window facing our back garden. While I had my hamster Alex, I had him in a cage, and the cage was always on that desk in front of the bed. When I tried to go to sleep during the night, I would hear the squeaking coming from his little wheel that he would run on. I think it was a few days before the event. He somehow escaped from his cage, and he ran out of my window. We looked inside the cage. We could not find it. We searched quite thoroughly for it, and we just couldn't find Alex the hamster. Few days later, after he had disappeared, I went to bed quite early because it was a school night. I woke up during the night feeling uneasy, as if something is watching you, or someone's there in the corner, just staring down at you with this pressure on you. It's quite a strange feeling. I sat up, and I didn't hear my parents in the television room, so I assumed that it was late enough, that they were already sleeping. I tried to go back to sleep. I heard the footsteps coming down that hallway again. At first I thought maybe it's my mom, because my mom would stand up, take the dogs outside for them to go and do their business, and then she would come back inside. But it would have been a bit strange if it was just her on her own, because normally she would have the dog's footsteps following behind her. I just kept feeling like there was some sort of pressure surrounding the atmosphere in my room. But I heard the footsteps, and they started getting closer to my bedroom door. My bedroom door would normally be closed enough that I could still have a bit of light coming from the hallway if somebody turned on the light. But there was no light at all. So I know for a fact that it wasn't my mother. Then the feeling of a supposed anxiety got worse. The footsteps kept coming, stopped right outside my door. Something pushed my door lightly so that it could open a bit. And I saw it opening, and I thought, okay, you know what? My mom is just checking up on me. She's making sure I'm sleeping. Because it is a school night, but nobody poked. Head around to see me nothing. And I began to hear my hamster's wheel start squeaking, as if he was running on it, but running super fast. That's when I just freaked out. I threw the blanket over my head. I screamed out in terror. When that squeaking got so loud, it's as if it was right next to me. Mother came running from her bedroom, asking me what's happening. Stopped. We checked the cage. No hamster. After that event happened, we went outside of our front door. So the front door to the whole household was actually quite close to where my bedroom door was. So I always thought that he escaped through the window and into the garden. And the next day, I found him in the garden, right in front of the front door, which was amazing. He came back. My mom said that something was kind of affecting me, so she said that. We need to call somebody to come and cleanse the house, to get the house clean. But my dad was always very against the idea. This would cause quite a lot of fights between them. Money wasn't a problem for us. We were very fortunate. But my dad was always under a lot of pressure at work. Whenever he got home, there would be quite a lot of negativity from his side, because his work was not easy. Especially for the mines in South Africa. It's quite a difficult job to do. So he was under a lot of pressure all the time. Because of that, my parents used to fight quite a lot. So I could hear them sometimes screaming at each other, shouting. My dad would be the first one to really raise his voice. But my mom used to keep saying this thing to him of, "You are bringing such negative energy into our household, and it's affecting your son. So that's basically affecting me." We moved around quite a lot because of my dad's work. So we moved into this brand new house. We had an upstairs and a downstairs. This is why. This makes these events a bit strange for me, because nobody has lived in this house at all. We were the first family to live in this house. This was about 2 years after my sister was born. This one night, my sister and we were downstairs. My sister was sleeping on a 2-seater couch. Opposite me and I was on the other. Similar 2-seater couch watching TV. My sister's sleeping. She's tossing and turning a little bit, but nothing is bothering her as much. Next, out of the blue moment, she wakes up, she looks at me, and as if it was a ticking time bomb, she just started screaming, as if somebody was physically hurting her. So I got up, I ran to her, and I tried to calm her down. And a few moments later, my mother came down, asking, "What did I do? What did I do?" So my mother came, picked her up. She calmed her down. And then my mother sat on the couch with my sister, and everything was fine. We carried on watching TV. My sister fell asleep. My mom's arms. My mom put her down next to her, just to give her a more comfortable position to lie in. After a few minutes, once again, out of the blue, starts freaking out. Just didn't make sense. But she did this thing where she would sit up. She starts screaming. But then she's pushing something in front of the couch. She's like extending her arm away, as if something is attacking her from under the couch. So she just kept extending her arm, trying to push something away. We are going towards her. My mom picks her up, and she's still got her arm extended, pushing whatever it is. We both freaked out by what's happening. So my mom just takes her, starts praying. Still don't know what happened. But my sister talked about it later on, when we got older, and she says no. She remembers that. It was these black dogs trying to attack her. They were trying to drag her away. That's what she remembers. That's so quite strange. Time passed. We still in this new house. I'm sleeping in my room if you climb up the stairs. The first door directly in front of you was the entrance to my bedroom. Left was the office/study room. And then on the other side of that was my parents' and my sister's bedroom. I fell asleep that night and woke up with that same uneasy feeling I had in the other house. I'm lying down facing the entrance, and I can see my cupboards, where my clothes and toys used to be packed away. And I saw that my middle cupboard where my toys were was left open, which is a very strange thing to happen, because every time I went there to put on my clothes before climbing into bed, I was taught from my parents that I must always close a cupboard and don't leave it open. I could see like an outline of the shelves, and it was very bright, like white. So even though it was dark, you could still make out a little bit of the shape of the shelves. Once I saw that there was kind of like a weird cloth that I saw in the previous house, coming out of the cupboard, but sloping downwards like smoke. If you've ever seen cold vapor, whatever flowing down the shelf, if you open the freezer during a really hot day, and you see that vapor just crawl underneath and fall straight down because it's cold. It was like that, but it's black. I tried to close my eyes, didn't want to look at it, but I looked at the cupboard again, and that's when I saw these two. Bright red eyes looking at me, and I jolted awake, like your body just jumps up from, as if you got a fright when you're falling. Screamed my lungs out. Even our house alarm went off, which was also strange, because nobody was at the bottom story, or the downstairs area. It's almost as if the alarm went off at the same time as I did. My mother ran in. She said her famous words. "Okay, just pray. I told you, if you see that, you need to pray, don't let it in." But I was just so freaked out. I didn't think of doing that stuff. The same house again. I think I was lucid dreaming. You can't move your body at all. You can move your eyes, but you can't really move your body at all. So I think in this evening, that's what was happening to me. So I was sleeping and woke up very late in the morning. Can't remember the time, probably off to about 2 a.m., and I couldn't move my body, as if it was like... With an instinct, I looked at the cupboards, where I saw that shadow face thing with the red eyes. But my cupboards were closed. Didn't see anything. So I thought, okay, I'm safe, I felt comfortable. Then I decided to look at my bed, my headrest. That was a big mistake. So I saw this face, like a face that had a mask above my head. It started forming, but it did it in such a way that it's like it just starts appearing out of thin air, solidifying this very vivid, detailed image of a face in front of you. I don't know whose face it was, because it looked like it was wearing a mask. I freaked out. I felt this heavy pressure. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't move, but I tried to see if I could wake my body up. I kept trying to move. It still kept coming towards me after it had formed. Eventually, I got feeling in my body and I punched at the face, kind of like a fight or flight response. I remember seeing my arm going through it before he disappeared. Since then, if I ever have like a lucid dream, or if I'm ever awake, but I can't move my body, I will keep my eyes closed, because I don't want to see that again. There was just such a horrible pressure after that, and I think that's why I just tried to fight it. My mother would always try and be in control, and she would always cleanse, even if my dad didn't believe it. She still did it because she believed that it was, like, very important, and she would always protect us. My grandparents are from Portugal. My uncle, my mom's brother, he passed away when he was 24, and my uncle was buried there. So when we went to visit, we stood on top of his grave. And since that first time, I always have, like, a comfortable feeling that he's around me. You know that I know everything is fine. And my mother says that he is always around the kids, always around my sister and I. He is our guardian angel. He is protecting us. And I think that's sometimes why I see things, even if I don't believe them. I will still experience small things. My mother is quite a big role in all of this stuff because of her being more religious. So everything, ironically enough, kind of ties around her. I used to have an ex-girlfriend in high school. Her mother passed away when she was about 3 years old. So she hasn't had a mom for many years. It was quite sad, but, you know, she carried on. So we started going out. She used to tell me about her mom, and, you know, I used to see her. Pictures of them when my ex was a little baby, with her mom on her mom's lap. What happened with this story was, she told me about her mom, and she would sometimes have quite vivid dreams, as if her mom was still around her. I always thought, I don't think there's anything there. Maybe there's no meaning to the messages that your mom's trying to give you in your dreams. So she would say that her mom in her dreams would say, no, that she's found someone that she can talk to. And I thought, okay, that's very weird. Then she says that her mom felt a pulling force towards another person. It wasn't me, because I didn't really feel anything change, and nothing happened to me specifically. However, because we were going out, and her mom kept telling the daughter that, oh, I'm feeling a pulling force. She was actually feeling that pulling force to my mom, so I disregarded everything she said. But a week after that, my mom says, listen, she's not feeling well. There's someone that is bothering me when I'm trying to sleep, and I asked my mom, what do you mean I don't understand? Who is someone? So my mom says no. She woke up, she saw this lady talking to her, and she wanted my mom to try and communicate with her daughter through my mom. She kept bugging my mom for 2 nights, and my mom eventually had enough, and she came to me and said, listen, I need to have a talk with this girl. I need her to come over now. I need to sit down, because this lady is bothering me the whole time. I cannot sleep, it's messing me up. So much so that my mom even looked sick. My ex came over, we sat down around a table. My ex didn't have to say anything. My mom told her everything about her mom, how she passed, why she wants to communicate with her. She wore glasses, a specific accessory that you need for every day. So she says no. She wore these black glasses, and she did this. And these are the common things that she would want you to remember her for. And my ex broke down in tears, saying, she can't even explain, because she never told me all of those details to me, so that I would tell my mom no. My mom knew all of this stuff all by herself. That was very scary. Still, these things happen. And my mom still says you are sensitive to it. Even if you deny it, you still gonna see it because you're sensitive to it. But I don't know, I'm 27 years old now. It's freaky that it still happens. You know, they say that dogs can see this sort of thing. We have a little pickiness. Sometimes during the night, he stares at the door and he barks and he doesn't stop. This one last event happened about 2 weeks ago. I normally set my alarm for 5 a.m. or 5 a.m. so that I can drive to work, because it's about an hour's drive. But what happened this morning? I forgot that I actually switched it off. So my first alarm went off. I would normally snooze it. Then my second alarm would go off 30 minutes after the first one. But this morning I switched both of them off. Don't know how, but that happened. Now it's 6 in the morning when I always leave for work. I was in dreamland. I heard this scream, like this loud shout as if it was right in my ear. That woke me up, and you wake up. You get a fright, you trying to catch your breath. That's how I was. I thought, what's happening? Is it my girlfriend? Is she okay? Because we live together, so she's next to me. So I thought, oh, maybe she screamed no. She's passed out. She's not even facing my direction. Whatever it was, woke me up at the exact time that I had to go to work. So then I phoned my mother about this, and I told her the story of what happened. As I'm telling her the story, she tells me no. I'm getting goosebumps right now, just hearing you. Tell me about this woman that screamed. And then she starts asking me questions like, Was she old? Was she young? I said to her, I don't know. I can't really tell how. The difference between an old and young scream. But it's a scream. And then she tells me it's weird that it's a woman. Because it would sound maybe like your uncle and not somebody else. So then my mom says, listen, you need to be careful because it would be maybe possible that it's your uncle. If it's a man's voice, but if it's a woman, maybe it's something else. So be careful. Do you know of someone who has a true scary story that takes place in the woods? Let me know by going to truescarystory.com and to get in touch or join our Scary Plus members that get to listen ad-free. Check out scaryplus.com or get in touch with me if you have any questions. I'll leave links to everything in the description of this episode. Thank you very much for listening. Keep it scary, everyone. See you soon. See you soon.